on Dead Man Stream. And if you're here with us, that would be pretty cool to hang out a little bit late with us. And I'm trying to time the thing, and I think it worked out all right there. Clobby went down to about 1. So we'll play around with that later. And tonight, and Hungry, are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, outstanding.
Right.
And we are live. We're going to talk about some horror movies, classic horror movies, Hammer films. Not necessarily your mainstream stuff, right, Clobby? We're not going to talk about aliens, although I might.
You call me Clobby again.
Gosh dang it. Just the first time.
That's okay. It's an honor
why I did it
and a compliment.
Because for everybody out there, we had already been streaming with Dad Man for a couple of hours, and I did not call Hungry Clobby at all, not one damn time. And then I got all distracted with trying to set up the stream and all that, and I'm looking at the avatar, and he got me. And I thought I was going to make it through the night without doing it. I apologize humbly. I'm very sorry, because it's got to get on your nerves.
This is the thing about horror, and also being an illustrator and a comic book illustrator. You do things to subconsciously, I hate to say this, manipulate the audience. I drew this image for Clobby. It is part of the Cloboni image that was on his show.
Yeah.
It's the top part of that.
And as we all know, he used the thing as one of his main, that was his thing.
And Grim.
Sorry, pardon the pun. But I apologize. I went through the whole other stream without doing it. I did write it down a couple of times by accident. And then I just looked over, getting all this stuff. My mind was a little scrambled. But we were discussing some horror movies backstage. And we said, hey, the heck with this. We're going to go live. We don't know if anybody's even going to show up. It's 2 a.m. here. It's about 4 o'clock for Hungry almost. So I'm just messing with you now.
No, it's nearly 5.
Hungry.
Nearly 5. And also here it is October 1st. So I'm entitled for the Halloween season to talk about horror movies. Now for you got to wait a couple hours, right?
No, it is 2 a.m. So 3 a.m. So I broke the midnight. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go back to the StreamYard site. That's messing me up. Yeah, so we were discussing all kinds of stuff. Probably should have gone live about an hour ago.
Yeah, probably. We'll try to remember, but we're old, so it's okay. But.
And one of the things I had brought up were some of the movies going overboard. I don't know if we'll even touch about. Maybe we will save it for another stream. But
we can refer to the overboard elements obliquely, without doing anything that's going to piss off the Yuban overseers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to go to Rumble for what I'm going to say. I can code my language, right? But I mean, there are movies that are too over the top, and then there are movies that people don't watch because they think, oh, that's a little bit weird, or I don't want to read subtitles, or this looks too European. But a lot of the best horror movies are European.
Yeah, and we brought up, or somebody brought up the Hammer films. Some people in the chat knew about them. We knew
that was Buddy.
I've seen them, and most people have at least heard about them. The other person, Dad Man, hadn't heard of them. I think he'll go back and watch them. I hope he does. And I'm going to try to share a screen of one of the Dracula 1958 one.
Yeah,
and then you can see the process that I have to go through here just to show this, because I don't have it set up already. I've already clicked on four different things. I'm added to stage there, and I can't mess with it because I added that as a direct shot.
And that's only one of the posters, one of the 5 posters.
Yeah,
but
and
that is the first time. And it was originally the horror of Dracula. Because Hammer was not allowed to just use the term Dracula because of copyright situations in conflict with Universal. So it was originally the horror of Dracula, and that's the first time Christopher Lee ever played the Count. But here's the irony. Okay, look, you've heard Christopher Lee in horror movies. You've heard him as Saruman, right? You know how good that voice is. Why do you have him not speaking in a damn horror movie?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Definitely. And I don't, you know, and I apologize. I don't know why this isn't showing up. It's showing up on the StreamYard side here.
No, I'm seeing it. What? No, I'm on
Yeah,
StreamYards too. I apologize. I don't know if
yeah.
it's on the YouTube side.
Hey, we are live. We're rocking and rolling. I'm watching it on the YouTube side. Um, you know, in
I am
fact,
disappointed we have no people showing up in the chat yet. I must say that.
at 3 a.m. Right?
I know. Hello, Dave. We have one
Hello.
person in the chat. You cloned yourself. That's
I made a
nice.
comment. Now, please like and subscribe, everybody.
Now we might get Buddy back, but it is a bit late for Buddy. It's a bit late for
Buddy, or even Gap. They might not know we're doing this at all, right? This was just at the end, but
on the screen, and there are so many horror films that people don't know about. You know, they know 2 of the Dracula films. There were actually more than 8. They know maybe 1 or 2 of the Frankenstein films. There were more than 5. And they might know 1 or 2 of the other Hammer horror films, but sometimes those other Hammer horror films were much better. And this is something I brought up to Clobby that he didn't realize. God rest his soul. One of his favorite actresses, Jacqueline Pierce, who played Servalan in Blake 7, before she got to Blake 7, played a villainess in a Hammer horror film called The Reptile.
nice.
And she was also in the first foray into zombie, classic zombie, not what we now call zombie, material for Hammer horror film called Plague of the Zombies. And unfortunately, she was not the final girl. Unfortunately, she dies like 35 minutes into the film or less. But she was the sexy one and she should have survived. But you know what? Back in the 60s, if you had dark hair and dark eyes, no, the blondie's going to be the final girl. Not you, honey. Not you.
Yeah, not you. And I think we have success. This is working now. I think StreamYards is being a little bit buggy because I've done this a couple of times with the comic show and I didn't have a problem. It's just a multi-step process. So it is scrolling up and down, and it is scrolling up and down on the YouTube side. So StreamYard is acting a little bit, dare I say, squirrely.
That's a good in joke.
Yeah, it's a good in joke for everybody. So yeah, Hungry, we get this shop, and ones we were talking about, there is that's the 72 Dracula. Weren't we looking for 58?
Yeah. I can't scroll from your screen. Oh, Frankenstein Created Woman. By the way, unless you want to have your heart broken, don't watch that movie. It is a heartbreaker. Have you seen it?
Oh, no. Which one?
Frankenstein Created Woman. Right there.
No, that's probably one I would never click on, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
It is a very tragic story. It is eloquently done, eloquently portrayed. It does have horror elements, but what happens to that poor woman in that movie, I saw that film when I was 7 years old, and dude, I honestly had tears coming down my face.
Wow. Well, see, now this might be a good offbeat recommendation.
It is. It is. And see, it presents her as the monster and ostensibly the villain. No, the people that brought her back to life, they were the villains. And the people that caused her death were the villains. I'm not going woke. I'm not being progressive. I'm just saying wrong things happened to women in the 1800s. Okay. Wrong things happened to women in the 1800s. And honestly, look, you got to have a strong heart to watch, not a strong stomach, a strong heart.
Which is what we were talking about as well, the over the top. And these aren't over the top gore, right? However, some of them were made in the 58, 60s. There's the
the period of well, we mentioned this before. An X rating in Britain is not the same as an X rating in the United States. So when you get an X rating in Britain, it could just be somebody going, "That's too scary. You're getting an X rating." Now, the uncut version of Frankenstein Created Woman, it does have what we would now call some minimal gore and violence in it. but it is so tame compared to what anyone under the age of 35 would consider scary physical horror. All right. The real horror is the emotional horror, the psychological horror. That's the real horror of it. But that means anyone who's addicted to TikTok is going to go, I'm falling asleep. I got to change to something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, and I was touching on also the time period, since it went back so far. Anything gory then wouldn't be even close to what's considered gory now, especially what we were talking about before we came live. None of those, doesn't even come close. I mean, it's not even in the same freaking cosmos as to some of the stuff that we were discussing before. We may touch on that.
Well said. Lust for a Vampire. That is a decent horror film, but it's really a booby nudie exploitation film. Not a lot of nudity. I mean, very, very little, but it's a decent film. It's not Frankenstein created woman. And it sure as hell not either Quatermass and the Pit or the first Quatermass film, which was, believe it or not, how Hammer Horror started. Hammer used to be like a song and dance happy movie company, believe it or not. That's how they started. And they got the rights to do, that is such an inappropriate, bloody, fucking Photoshop, people. I shouldn't have sworn. I apologize.
Right. It's 3 a.m. here. I'm not monetized.
Okay.
That don't bother me, dude.
The real movie poster is so much better. So much better. Don't go looking for it. 3 a.m.
I'm not.
That is not going to encourage you to see the damn movie. But Quatermass and the Pit.
But wasn't the Pit its own standalone movie? Now I'm a little confused on this one. It's Quatermass and the Pit is its own.
Quatermass.
Quatermass and the Pit is its own standalone. Because wasn't there? What I don't like here, they don't show the years or the ratings.
They're careless. They're bloody careless.
Description. No, I don't see the years on any of these. Not on this one.
Quatermass in the Pit was either 67 or 68. I'm not going to IMDb for this one.
No, I'm not.
That was the third and final Hammer Quatermass films. Now, what you have to understand about Quatermass is what they call the proto Doctor Who. So Quatermass enters the scene for live BBC television. Live. Okay. And if you didn't see it, you miss it. So you had the first Quatermass experiment called the Quatermass Experiment, the Quatermass television series that came live in the relatively early 1950s. And it sucked everybody in. By the time they get it to episode 5, there were at least 6 episodes. Everybody was watching it. And Hammer, they petitioned to get the rights to do the movie version. Okay, condense a multi-episode miniseries on television into a movie version. And they did it so well that they made so much money for so little budget that Hammer changed its entire production program and said, we are doing scary movies from now on until further notice.
Yeah. And production value for these wasn't horrible. I mean, they had to pay these guys, Christopher Lee and stuff like that, and had to pay, some other people that they would bring in. But they had some money. They weren't terribly produced, right?
They were, for a lack of budget, they were brilliantly produced. And honestly, if you look at the first Quatermass film, ignore the second one. Sorry, I love it, but nobody else will. I'm alone in that. There are like 5 people in the world that like the second Quatermass movie, but you
like
can
Highlander
see the entire, yeah. Well, I hate that movie, but the second Quatermass film is available, but you can see every episode of the second Quatermass television show, which is brilliant. Okay, it's brilliant. And then you have all of the episodes of Quatermass in the Pit on television available, but you also have the brilliant 1960s done in color, the first color Quatermass with Quatermass in the Pit. And it is a very deep movie. And it has some very scary moments. And there are some moments that are visually scary, But and we were joking about this before we went live. Okay. I am not a big fan of the Terrifier thing.
No, I'm
And
not up to the point that we talked about it, because I'll probably do another stream on this stuff, the over the top.
right, right. And unless there is like a supernatural reason or a science fiction reason, a non guy in a mask picking up something with a blade from a kitchen, just doing the wrong thing physically to other people, I don't
Yeah,
consider that horror. I don't.
yeah,
That's slasher.
it's slasher. And I was thinking of another one, and I can't think of the name. I probably, because I could care less. The typical kids go to the farm, and there's some bad people there, but there's one particular guy, and it's a ripoff of Texas Chainsaw. I mean, of course, because that's the standard for the most part, right? For classic horror slasher, whatever you want to categorize it as.
Right.
Not you, Hungry, I meant whoever's out there in the world, right? Everybody's different, but there was a scene where he's doing something to a person that they do to a pig, not sexual, horrible. And it just, I'm like, it was so over the top. I was like, okay, I'm done. And I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I've seen the body parts flying. We can talk about that again, but we're talking about some more of the classical, non-classic, other than Dracula, like Hammer movies and stuff like that, that don't have to go that far.
Right. And also there's a difference between an erudite horror film and like here's something that I got a dumbass relative. Okay. I'm just going to say it. Guy's a dumbass. All right. I mean, like when you watch That 70s Show and Red says, "You're a dumbass," right? That's the kind of dumbass I'm talking about. And he said, "Oh, you like horror films? All my friends said you're going to like this." And he had rented a DVD and it was Hostel. For God's sake, that is not a horror film. That's not.
That's a slasher chop 'em up movie.
Right. Right. It's got nothing to do with horror. It's got to do with graphic depictions of violence. No, that's not a horror film. The Thing is a horror film, but a sci-fi film. And like we were also talking about, The Howling is a horror film.
Love that.
The original Howling.
Man. Loved that.
Adored it. Saw it when it came out.
American Werewolf in London. Right?
Ditto. Although that had humor in it. That also had really good humor. And so violence for the sake of violence is just what we get in the news every day these days. So I will never consider anything that doesn't have something beyond a classically human's ability to commit to be a horror film. Anyone who goes off their nut and just causes physical violence, that's not a horror film to me.
Well, right. And that's why I brought up Bone Tomahawk for two.
Right.
Well, the one specific reason was it's the same scene. And now you would know that if you've seen Bone Tomahawk and not seen Terrifier, or vice versa. But in Bone Tomahawk, they don't have anything that even remotely comes close to that in that movie until then. Right? I mean, there's some brutality. There's brutality and there's some head splitting going on. And I do remember now that that particular tribe were horribly brutal.
Yes.
But not quite yet up to what you see at that point, right?
However,
so that makes it a shocking horror. That's horrific, because you didn't really see that coming. You don't in Terrifier, but there's a difference. There's a big difference in how they do things.
In Terrifier, they never explain anything, and
it's just what did you say, for F's sake?
Yes.
That's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
For F's sake. For F's sake, that's why they do it. I get it, but it's nothing like horror. It's not, and I'm not anywhere in depth on the difference between horror and slashers, or you are, but I can tell you, if you go back and watch a bunch of these and all the classics, and and we brought up The Thing, and I don't want to derail any of my future stream because I think we're going to do a whole nother future stream just
Right.
on that. We're not going to even
Okay.
talk about it. We reverse this. Because if you go to any of these Hammer movies, particularly, it wouldn't have been allowed anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't fit. None of that would fit, other than you could take some graphic depictions of what a vampire could do to somebody, right?
Yes. Yes.
Could. But when you look at the Dracula that I liked with Neo and Bram Stoker's Dracula, I like that. Some people don't like that movie. I love that movie.
Really?
I don't know if I actually wanted Neo. What's his freaking name?
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. I don't know if I liked. Should I just
Oh
say?
no, I
don't know
hated
if
his
liked,
performance, but I love the movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I
And
liked
Anthony
his
Hopkins
face.
was bloody plastered throughout his entire performance in that. I don't mind that. Anthony Hopkins has earned his right to be plastered during an entire film production.
Well, that was that Anthony Hopkins? No,
Yes.
that was I'm gonna have to. No. That was the guy from The Professional, Gary Oldman.
No, I'm talking about Van Helsing. I'm not talking about Dracula.
I'm talking about Bram Stoker Dracula with no. Okay, I missed that. Sorry.
He was in the cast. Look it up.
He
It's
was-
on IMDb.
Oh, that's right. He was. Jeez, I was so focused on Dracula that I wasn't even thinking. And
You're
that
making
I
me
didn't.
laugh too much. I got to go to the loo again. I'll be right back.
You're so correct. So he's on a break, everybody. We're just we were just reminiscing about the differences between some of the old ones and some of the off-beaten ones. Like we were talking to somebody earlier who didn't even know much about these, or even know about Hammer Horror. This a production company, and I'll have Hungry touch on that. They didn't do all horror, mostly from 58 to 74, but you can see some of the cool ones here. 1 million years BC. That's pretty much a classic. I haven't seen it in so long though, and I can't even remember this.
Sorry, which one? Which one haven't you seen in so long?
1 million years BC.
Oh, that is a lovely film. I wouldn't classify it as a horror film. That's really sort of a dinosaur recreation film.
Yeah, and it's Raquel Welch. I should have known that. Slap me across the face on this one. I was like, oh, I don't remember her. I was like, wait, yeah, I do. And they actually do put the year on here, 1966. So they did put that here.
Fantastic stop motion animation in that movie. Some of the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a Harryhausen.
Yeah, and I mean, I go to Harryhausen all the time.
Oh,
and
dude, yeah, I mean,
I had to explain Harryhausen to Raquel. And yeah.
Wait, now if she's listening, I don't know if she's up, right? But isn't she a Sinbad fan?
Who do you think introduced her to the Sinbad films?
Okay, then it was you.
It was me, and we watched Seventh Voyage together, and we watched Golden Voyage together, and then we watched the final Harryhausen film together.
Nice.
And there were, a lot of back and forth. We were watching it privately, and then she would bring those up. Not telling tales out of school, but she, she said, "Oh, Hungry and I watched these films together." And that was for Clubby's Clubhouse when she did, Raquel's film review, and she was amazed at them. I also introduced her.
I remember those, the Thursday night show,
right? And I also introduced her to Mysterious Island, also animated by Harryhausen.
Nice,
right? She wasn't such a big fan of 7 Million Miles to Earth because there's that awful moment where the emir is facing off with the elephant, and the emir is actually having to kill the elephant, but it wasn't the emir's fault. I mean, the emir is an alien not able to breathe properly in Earth's atmosphere, being attacked by this big damn creature with a trunk and tusks. Look, that's just two animals fighting.
Yeah, it's just two animals fighting. Yeah, Ymir is a classic as well, right?
I love Ymir. I love him. And,
Yeah.
and the fact that he starts out as this little cute animal and the kid thinks, oh, this is my pet. No, this thing comes from Venus. It comes
Yeah.
from the planet Venus. This is not your pet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in 1 million years BC, would probably be curious as to how Hammer got that. It's so out of touch with not out of touch, out of what they do here, right? Like you said, it's not a horror movie. It's a prehistoric movie. That's all it is with Raquel Welch.
Well, I mean, a lot of times what Hammer would do would be offer, like, just say to somebody, we'd really like to have you in a film. Are you willing to do it? Yes. Are you willing to do a horror movie? No. Okay. Are you willing to do a movie where you don't have to face off with a monster, but there might be dinosaurs you never see? Yes. Okay. We're good to go.
Yeah.
And
occasionally a dinosaur sort of eats somebody, kind of.
well,
You know,
I mean, there
kind of
were a
reaches
lot of
down and
dinosaur
grabs.
attacks in that movie. There were a lot of dinosaur attacks in that movie.
Yeah.
A lot.
And you know, and I guess we're just ride out this Hammer for a bit, because they
I don't
touched on-
mind as long as I can make a couple of recommendations, like the horror of Frankenstein. All right, there's a significant reason to watch that film. So look at the guy on the cover, right? That's David Prowse. David Prowse was the physical body in the Darth Vader suit that got voice dubbed for Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's Darth Vader. That's him.
That's David Prowse.
Oh, and it kind of reminded me of something I do want to talk about, because we can always go on different angles here. Actors who played stuff and you didn't know who they were at first, right? And I would never have known that unless you told me, and I wouldn't have known that BC was a Hammer film, or well, produced it. Okay, but I wouldn't have said like you said, I would like to have known where they got that. But what's the?
He was in a second Frankenstein horror film. He was also in, I don't like this film because it doesn't have a real monster in it. Not a real monster, but this should be in the list here. Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. So that should be in this available list.
Well, I'm sure it's in there. And the premise of this is
the Reptile. That's the one with Jacqueline Pierce, who is one of Clobby's favorite actresses from Blake Seven. Nice. She's the main character in The Reptile. Oh, yes. Lovely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please.
No.
The Reptile is really good.
Teenage Victor Frankenstein. So he wants to go to Vienna. Okay, so the premise is it's a young teenage Victor, and he wants to go to school in Vienna. And then the rest is history, sort of. But so what's the flip on any kind of plot line here? What's up with this one? Or is it just?
Do you mean the version that's censored for American TV, or the version that people outside of America saw?
Oh, geez.
There's two versions.
I would go with both. I would probably the one that censored outside.
There is a scene in the uncensored version where Victor, getting rid of unfortunately Kate O'Mara, who is one of the sexiest actresses who ever lived, and thank God she was in more than 5 Hammer horror films and a lot of other horror films. Oh, talk about the luck of the Irish. She lucked out genetically, you know what I mean?
Hey, guess who's here? Lady V.
Oh, Lady V! So happy to see you. So happy to see you. And yeah, we're doing a deep dive, a couple of deep cuts, pun intended, for horror, into horror. You can't say deep cut.
I should have got a cup of coffee.
Yeah. But we're going to do a couple of deep cuts. Again, no pun intended, into horror. And so this one had Kate O'Mara, very sensual actress. By today's Hollywood standards, they wouldn't hire her because she's got a very specific look, if you know what I mean. Very cat-like eyes, very distinct, very distinct jawline, and they would have liked her cleavage. All right, they would have liked her cleavage, but she often played the character who would make the mistake of speaking up to the villain in the story and then suffer dire consequences. And that's a
Yeah.
common theme, a common trope in horror films. So in Horror of Frankenstein, there's this one scene where, look, she makes the mistake of pissing Victor off, and Victor leaves her alone, locked in a dungeon, for lack of a better term, with the newly created monster. And there is the direct implication that that is the only food the monster has for the next week.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Not
but the
nice.
difference would be, well, I guess I was trying to say that the Hammer films don't show gore, but they do. They're not. They do.
Well, later on they did. Later on they did.
Right, because Lady V, some of these movies go back to the 60s, and we all know
50s,
that you're
the 1950s.
in the 58 is the Dracula one.
Also, Curse of Frankenstein.
Yes, and Curse of Frankenstein as well. So the
Which
gore,
was
the gore
Christopher
levels.
Christopher Lee's first role for Hammer was Curse of Frankenstein as the monster, where Hammer was so stupid they didn't actually let Christopher Lee with that brilliant speaking voice that makes all the ladies wet their knickers speak.
Right.
I mean, duh.
He had a voice, right?
Yeah. He had the voice, and also that had Peter Cushing playing Dr. Frankenstein for the first time, and it was cinematically perfect. Perfect.
No, Lady V. we were just, it was just the what we were talking about is all the films. Not that you wouldn't want them.
Oh, no. We're not talking about you, Lady V. We're talking about a bunch of numbnuts who claim to be horror fans who say, I like classic horror films. I watch films from 1985 onwards. Shut up, you brat. Go back to TikTok. Horror films go back to the silent age.
Yeah, and it's not to say that people can't like the old ones and the new stuff, but we really got on this tangent because we were talking about gore.
Gore and other things that are unacceptable.
We wanted to talk about the difference between how much can gore go that was allowed compared to today, and the tangent would be, well, you can allow more now, but that's kind of my point. You don't have to, but we all know that movies have been pretty brutal, going all the way to the 80s. The Thing kicked it off. The Exorcist, my number one, that freaked me out because I was very young at the time. That's old. And if you were young,
did you see the uncut version when you were young of The Exorcist, or did you?
I saw it when I was like 30, and it scared the living shit out of me just as much as it did when I was a kid. And I didn't sleep for like 2 days.
So and I had probably saw the theatrical version, right?
When I was a kid, I saw the television version. I saw the television version when I was young because I couldn't go to the movies and see it. Right. Not until a lot later, and they did re-shows, during Halloween or whatever. Right. And I didn't see the new one until, I was like almost 30. I'm still scared the hell out of me, man.
It is a terrifying movie, and I'll tell you what. This is not a tangent. We're not going to go wade in the weeds with this. It is always more terrifying to a Catholic than a non-Catholic. And you know why? We took the wafer. All right. We gone through First Communion. We gone through confirmation. That movie is bloody terrifying to us. And it is more terrifying to us than any agnostic or any atheist. And that's part of why Hammer, getting back to what you're talking about, is so beautiful, because Hammer would investigate numerous, shall we say, paths of belief. Okay. You can say religion, you can say faith, you can say anything else. Hammer actually took a bunch of risks there, and Hammer took the risk even in the 1960s, the early 1960s, of challenging the idea of science versus faith. And that is an ongoing theme in a bunch of Hammer horror films. And there are a bunch of other deep films, like we were talking about gore. Yeah, that's part of why we wanted to talk about it. But, we were also talking about how something can be a deep cut. That doesn't mean it's necessarily too violent to watch. It may just mean that it's not common fodder. All right. It's not what I call a Kmart horror film.
Right.
And there are films that even Andre, I mean, Nordic horror films that Andre from Midnight's Edge, he's not bloody well seen yet. And look, if you're going to be interested in the thought process behind horror, then go to a movie that thinks rather than Terrifier or Terrifier 2. You know, a film that has a thought process behind the script.
Yeah, and to show, I'm an old one for Lady V, and maybe
I love
you
this
know
one.
this one.
Yes.
The Thing from Another World, and guess who the Thing is here?
James Arness.
James Arness, and that's Gunsmoke, right?
Yes.
Or the Rifleman? Which one? I think it's Gunsmoke.
I thought it was Gunsmoke. I might be wrong, but
I think it was Gunsmoke.
You know,
yeah.
That was about the amount of horrific makeup you could use in 1951.
Yeah.
All right.
So for Lady V, if you remember the Thing, hey, Matthew Powder's here. Oh, sorry, guys.
Hey, Matthew, great to see you.
Moving things around too much.
Matthew also knows horror films and British sci-fi. Matthew is good people.
Oh, nice. Nice.
But the thing that's wonderful about The Thing from Another World, 1951, which also correlates to the 1982 version, is they are very dialogue-driven films, but it's not drivel dialogue.
No,
all the dialogue is important.
Yeah, the acting's great. This is like, so when Lady V, we're talking about old, I would recommend this if you've never seen it. Obviously, most of the people who would tune in on this and don't like horror has seen the Kurt Russell The Thing, or at least watched it and didn't like it, or watched it and absolutely loved it.
Right.
And we were talking about, I guess we'll go on a little bit about over the top compared to, and obviously this is in 51. You're not going to get a lot of gore here. In fact, they barely even show blood.
Actually, they weren't allowed to because of the Hays Code. That's the censorship code that came in after, I think it was after 1933.
I thought that they were showing blood when they went into, and spoiler alerts, if you have your thing, this one's, it follows along, right? With the one, I'll reverse engineer this because most people may not have seen this. Matthew and Lady V, maybe you've seen this because it's fantastic.
Oh, Matthew has certainly seen it.
I love this movie.
I adore it.
So there was some pods there that were bleeding on purpose. The monster was a little bit different, obviously, because you don't have CGI. You don't have even the stuff they could do in the 80s. Practical effects. Very, very practical effects. That's actual James Arness, and that's a pretty good shot of him here too.
Well, I mean, honestly, to be look, I've seen the film 7 times. All right, the little podlings, like the children of the
they
Thing,
didn't bleed though. They weren't showing the blood?
They did not bleed. But what they did was the scientists had shown that they were living on human blood. They were and
that's scary enough in the 50s, right?
Right. The concept is horrible enough.
Right. We both said it at the same time. The concept for an audience back then in a movie theater would be creepy enough. Right?
And there was the implication presented by the scientists that this was the reason why the Thing was killing off the scientists and the other personnel at the Arctic base to provide sustenance for its children. And they did establish it was a vegetable-based life form.
Yeah,
not a mammal-based life form.
And we're getting at the gore and how you can use gore to terrify an audience, which we talked about that movie, right?
Or you can avoid gore, and you can terrify an audience without it.
And because the Thing, our generational Thing, the 82 with Kurt Russell, it's a masterpiece, right? Well, at least I think so, for the most part. The horror, the special effects in there fit what was going on, right? It was, I wouldn't say that it was over the top, although some might be able to call me a hypocrite for saying it's over the top but for everybody, Matthew and Lady V, I watched Terrifier. We're not going to even get into it. I watched Terrifier, but I forgot something to tell you. I've got Shudder, because it had a free 7-day trial. And the version I saw, Hungry, is the what you might consider uncut or director's version.
Right.
Okay. But that's what they filmed because that's what they wanted to put out.
Right.
Right. Or they wouldn't have filmed it. They would have like, nah, they wouldn't have done that. I'll touch that on another stream. If you guys have seen Terrifier, you might want to stick with the lower end version of it.
Well, I mean, that's an issue that we also wanted to discuss where, look,
well, we're talking about just being grotesque for F's sake, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
not also within the parameters of the era that we're in.
But also, let's even look at the past 10 years. Okay. You can get away with a lot, but if there is something in the script that justifies the absolute gross out elements, if the script justifies that, if it is an intelligent film, and I will recommend a movie that is incredibly gross, but it is incredibly intelligent, and it is somewhat Lovecraftian, H.P. Lovecraft. It is a film from nearly 10 years ago called The Void. All right.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen it, dude, Dave, you got to see it. You got to see it. And it will mess you up a little bit, but it won't mess you up as much as the remake of Suspiria. But in both of those films, every gross thing or grotesque thing you see is justified in the writing. Just like in Howard Hawks' 1951, The Thing, it's justified in the writing. And if you pay attention to the script in the 1982 version of The Thing, which is not a remake, it is actually based off the original novella, which is a long form short story called Who Goes There. It justifies every grotesque and horrific, nightmarish thing, pun intended, you see in The Thing. It's all justified. But if something is not justified, it's just a dirtwad going, who can we hire for the special effects to make a head fly off the body?
Yeah. And I'm going to show a picture now from The Thing 82. So if you're squeamish, everybody turn away.
Trigger warning, trigger warning.
Trigger warning. I am going to show one still picture. It's not one of the classics, but it's good.
Oh, you're not going to show the dog one, are you?
No.
Okay.
And I hope it shows up. Oh, I got to add it to stage. Remember, there's 10 buttons I got to push.
There we go.
Yeah, let me see if it's on the YouTube side. Oh, sorry, Matthew. I forgot to hit enter on the hail. Hail to you, Matt. Forgot to send it to you.
Lady V triggered. But for people who don't know and haven't seen the film, look, this face you see is a very transformed, shall we say, face of one of the major characters who up to this point was not infected by the Thing. Right. So this is an actual character that you came to like and enjoy. And now the body had been taken over, had been subsumed, had been consumed and absorbed by the Thing. And yeah, it's hard to take.
Yeah. And it was always interesting that they could duplicate. Or we're going to go on a tangent about the Thing here. I'm catching myself already, but it could duplicate you if it wanted to, but you catch it in different forms. And through the movie, I always thought it was kind of cool that they were always pestering this Thing, right? It could never, it did a couple of times that we found out later, but it caught him a few times too, right? It wasn't always. Now so when we talk about gore or not, they could have left all of this out and only kept it as pod people type thing, right? And only had one scene, maybe one scene. You can pick a million of them, right? But it would have. So people could argue with me, and probably rightfully so, that some of these and sticking to the Hammer films and horror was over the top, but not for me.
For the time, as you mentioned.
This is 82.
Yeah.
82.
And people were not used to this. I mean, when me and my teenage buddies came out of that theater there were three of us, right? We came out of that theater. We were in bloody shock. We couldn't talk about anything but that movie for 2 hours. We couldn't
I
talk about
I
anything
couldn't stop
other.
talking about that movie for 40 years.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get you. I get you. But
I
see,
mean, Snow Dubs, that's his number one movie. You know what I
it
mean?
was oh, that's
That's his
impressive.
number one. You ask Snow Dub what his number one movie is, it's The Thing.
But see, here is the thing, pun intended. Here's the thing about the thing. Okay. You had Kurt Russell and Keith Bloody David. I love Keith David.
Oh
as an
God,
actor.
I just gave myself chills on the next one I'm going to show you.
Right. Now,
Oh,
Keith David is
dude,
magnificent, and
I
he's
can't
not
even look at
often
this.
allowed to play the depth of the kind of character he can play. And in
Well,
the thing, his characterization of his role in that movie, particularly not being happy with Kurt Russell's character. And then we have that very famous scene at the end of it, which is in dispute. I don't want to go into the dispute about that. That's really wading into the weeds.
nah, that's a whole nother. Don't.
But I love Kurt Russell. I love
Keith
David.
Keith David is an awesome actor. I like him a lot.
And for those two to be the survivors was incredibly intuitive filmmaking by John Carpenter. Incredibly intuitive.
Now,
And
this is going to
just
be
beautiful movie.
This is a small picture. I don't know how small it's going to show up on the YouTube side because I didn't get a good picture of this. I'll go find another one. But you see this?
Oh, that's Reagan, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Reagan. And I could actually go back here and because I pulled it up as a picture and not as a file off of the internet. I'm going to go dig another one up here and try to get it. But as soon as I saw that, I got chills on my hair stood up on my arm. And
I know, but just so it's okay with you, because we do need to do a little bit of a deep dive here. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not because of what I like. I feel an obligation to the genre of horror because otherwise I would have no fucking career. Okay. Because horror and sci-fi are joined at the hip, and horror and sci-fi led to comic books, and I would have no career without comic books. So is it okay before the stream ends, we talk about non-American horror films, aside from Hammer?
Yeah.
Aside from Hammer.
But I wanted to show, that's not the one from Ladyville. Yeah, we can. I wanted to show this one. So, because we could go into Body Snatching, with Donald Sutherland and
oh, I love that. That had Veronica Cartwright, who was also an alien.
And also an alien. Yeah. And you talk about what was over the top there. Nothing, but it was gross that you could see what the pod people were doing to them. And that's all they needed. Right.
There was one over the top part that was actually visually goofy because the special effects could not handle it.
Yeah.
It was when the hobo who had the dog was absorbed. And then the dog shows up and it's got the hobo's face.
It's got the hobo's face, and it reminds you of The Fly, right? That we brought up a couple weeks ago with Vincent Price, The Fly. Help me. And that freaked out people back then. But I tell you that scene, if you really didn't see it really fast, and then you saw it with the dog, that scared the shit out of you, right? But the ending of that movie scared me. The very ending scared me.
Conceptual horror. Veronica Cartwright is the only survivor that we know. She sees Donald Sutherland. She thinks, oh, great, you survived. And then he puts his hand out and does that big mouth motion and does the pod possessed sound. And yeah, that's the end of the movie. And and I'm sorry for spoilers for a 1978 movie, but look, if people have not seen it up until now, our recommendation is not going to get them to watch it. Okay. But it also, let me just say, if you're a fan of Jeff Goldblum, that was one of his first damn movie roles. Jeff Goldblum plays the boyfriend of Veronica Cartwright. And it's got Leonard Nimoy, AKA Spock, in the movie as a major character.
It's Spock as a major character. And this is for Lady V, because she said The Fly was sexy, but we're talking about the old Vincent Price scene. Well, it wasn't Vincent Price, but so and you might have seen it, that this character gets caught in this web with the spider coming up,
And he's about to get munched.
and he's screaming, "Help me! Help me!" It's funny now, but it wasn't funny when I remember when I watched that. It creeped me into that. And somebody was talking about they didn't like spiders the other day, and we're like, "Well, have you seen this?"
Right.
Like, I can't remember if they said yes or no, to be honest.
Oh, there are 5 people in our friendship group that cannot handle spiders. 5.
Yeah. So if you want terrifying with no gore, but you know what's coming up, this scene from here, and I apologize that it's not blowing up larger. That's I'm just trying
to
pull these up really fast while we're talking. Oh, about that movie and that movie. And
but
so,
again, when I was talking about script setting things up, there is a scene more than 15 minutes before this scene in this 1958 version, right?
Right.
Okay. Where one of the family members says they saw a fly with a small white head and a small white arm. They set this scene up, but if you're not paying attention, you won't catch it. And if you are paying attention, you're thinking, oh no, oh no.
Yeah,
no, you can't be saying that. No. And then we get to this scene, and look, they do the right thing. They take the spider and they take poor Delambre. That's his name, right? That's the name of the scientist, Delambre.
Right.
I know the shit way too well. I apologize.
Well, yeah, dude, it's awesome.
But Delambre was the guy who attempted to create the teleportation device. And it is a matter transmission device, which we would now refer to as a teleportation device. And the 58 version is great. It's got the big reveal where we don't know what he looks like up until a little less than 2/3 of the film, and he's wearing the cloth over his head, right? And he's always hiding the fly claw hand in his pocket. I remember these scenes very vividly. And he's trying to communicate with his wife, and she's wondering, why aren't you talking? Why aren't you talking? And he's writing notes with his good hand, right? And then eventually she gets fed up and she pulls the cloth off his face, and his head is that of a fly.
I'm gonna try to pull a clip and see if I can show
you want to risk that? YouTube copyright? You want to do that?
10 seconds.
You pays your money, you takes your chances, ladies.
I can do my 10 seconds. And hopefully it'll even work. And it's so creepy, but The Fly is another good one because there's a series of them, right? Over the years of what
I can tell you exactly what the series is.
Yeah. Well, let's see if this works, guys. Let's see if this pops up on the YouTube side. Oh, gotta add it to stage. See what I'm saying? Hungry that I always have to.
I gotta go full screen. That's a little bit small. Hold on. Yeah, I see that.
Can you see that on the? Let's see. Let me see if it'll go up a little bit here. Where'd it go? Sorry, guys.
And that also was a very realistic spider for Hollywood at the time, because Hollywood was terrible at doing bloody spiders up until the early 1970s.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit bigger. There we go.
1970s.
So maybe I can play this.
Again, be careful. This is highly
I'm going to count. I'm going to count on my hand here. That's all you get anyway, apparently. So we're good. Yeah, so I play it again. That's terrifying.
Oh, Matthew Pounder, I have to interject here. I love the alligator people. I have that on my hard drive. I love the alligator people. I honestly think that is one of the best early body horror films that ever existed. But I apologize. I apologize, Matthew. I've got to get back to what Dave was saying, our illustrious host, who hopefully is not turning on too many women. But that's also a thing in horror films. Okay. This is an aspect of horror films. You might have the monster or the bad guy that is really there for the ladies. You know, let's face it, Dracula is very much there for the ladies, very much. And sometimes, believe it or not the Frankenstein monster, but Victor von Frankenstein, there for the ladies. But to get back to something you were talking about with The Fly, you also only, in terms of release, not production, right? Release of the film, less than a year and 2 months later, you had Return of the Fly, which ironically, although it didn't do as well as the first movie, had a more realistic fly head and fly arm. So you had a relative of Delambre, the original character, trying to recreate his experiments to prove he did nothing wrong. So there was a noble reason. This is a big trope in horror films, big theme in horror films. Someone's trying to do something noble. They make a tragic mistake. Bad things happen. And Vincent Price is in that one as well. And then you had the third one, which has one of the most sexy women ever to do 3 horror films ever, called The Curse of the Fly. Now, that was made much later. That was around 1963. Black and white. Can you look up Curse of the Fly? I need.
I did pull up the whole series that you can see here off of Wiki, and I guess I could click right on it. Did it show up on the YouTube side? Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't even aware that there were 5 of them. I knew there were 2 old ones. I wasn't even aware of Curse of the Fly.
The initial series and Curse of the Fly was 1965, but I think it was made in 63, but then they had to deal with like editorial bullshit. Carol Gray was in that. And Carol Gray, leaving horror and exploitation out of it, she is one of the most beautiful women who ever walked the damn planet. And she was in 2 other horror genre films. But Carol Gray, she was also in Island of Terror, also starring Peter Cushing. I recommend this to everybody. It is a sci-fi horror film. It is very scary, even though you might laugh. If you are under the age of 40, you will laugh at the special effects, but it is a scary film. The concept is scary, but Carol Gray, hubba hubba.
Ooh. Yes.
Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Because see, again, Matthew's he's getting where I'm coming from. Curse of the Fly actually goes into the real reasons why you want to create a teleportation device, because you can transport food to the starving. You can have a surplus of food and transport it to a place in Africa where they have no food.
Yeah,
this is a sci-fi concept.
And again, I haven't seen this one. Matt, I think he's seen it. Actually, gave it a very good recommendation.
Raquel gave it a 9 out of 10.
Oh, nice. And then again, the gore isn't going to really be that bad. Right?
There was no gore. There was body horror. That's different.
Because it's still in the 50s. It's still a 58.
No, it was 65.
This one's. I was thinking of the original. Sorry.
So the thing in Curse of the Fly is they're showing the after effects of the mistakes that were made from the subsequent Delambre family trying again to make right the mistakes of the original Professor Delambre, the original. And they keep making mistakes. And it just means your body going to get messed up. Your body going to get messed up. It's going to be body horror. Yeah. And they have some horrific makeup in that movie. Horrific makeup.
I saw one picture of her in there, and it didn't look good.
What, Carolyn Gray?
No, she looks good. But wasn't it?
She always looks good.
Yeah, the makeup and stuff was not good. But The Fly, I guess we can segue into what we were talking about with gore transversing eras. and how much you can get away with, especially how much money you have, production
Oh
value.
yeah.
But really, so when you get into the 80s, The Fly, you're talking gory now, man. You're talking.
Well,
You're
there
talking
was some gore, but most of it was
the
body horror.
vomit,
I mean,
the eating, the vomit scene, and him.
oh no. The gore. I'll tell you exactly the scene. You might not remember that clearly. It's when the bad guy who is harassing the female protagonist, okay, Brundlefly is not having any of it.
No.
And this guy tries to hit him, right? Brundlefly catches his hand, snaps it off. Actually, no, he doesn't snap it off. That's in the arm wrestling scene. That's a different scene. He actually pukes up the digestive fluid onto the hand of the guy.
Yeah.
And the hand, it's Cronenberg. What are we going to do? Okay.
Well, yeah, and as far as, I guess I should backtrack on that word gore, because I don't want it to mess up all the other things we've been saying.
Right.
This isn't gory. I'm going to take it back. That's monster. You've got the monster is pretty grotesque. But the only gore I think you touched on that. I mean, his face when he transforms into the Fly is pretty brutal, right?
Well,
I mean, it's pretty brutal, but it's not gory.
Which Fly are you talking about at the moment? The 58 or the 86?
Oh, 86. I've moved on to between the differences of so
body horror is transformation. Gore, which is often, I'm sorry, Zoomer brats, but you guys don't understand horror. If you're a Zoomer brat, you're under 25, you don't get it. I hate to sound ageist there, but gore means physical violence to a body. And that doesn't require horror to happen. You can have, like, Hostel. There's no horror in Hostel. There's no horror in that. It's just a dumbass movie about people committing violence to other people.
Yeah. So this is the 86 Fly.
Yes. And see, that is monster horror, but also body horror, because it's a transformation. And this is what happens, as we were talking about privately, in the original first Hammer horror film, the Quatermass Experiment, where a physical body, due to scientific reasons the person cannot control, is becoming a monster. Sorry for spoilers for a movie that was made in the 1950s, but if you ain't seen it by now, you're probably not going to watch it. And it's a black and white British horror film, for God's sake. But with this, there were so many beautiful,
slasher one.
I can't read that out, Lady V. I can't read that out.
I'll answer it. Yeah, it's a slasher one. That's what it was. Slasher. Yeah.
Well, there is a word that starts with T, followed by a word that starts with P, and that is what Hostel is considered.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the oh my gosh kind of guy. I Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Thing. I love The Thing. I think the all the stuff that happens in The Thing 82 is appropriate for that kind of movie if that's what they wanted to do, right?
Right.
But if you actually, I'm stepping back on The Fly, it's The Thing is way gorier than The Thing.
Well, I mean, again, there was gore, but it was mainly body horror. And as Matthew Pounder points out, that is the thing that is on the net now. But the original thing that was said in print in magazines, and I was reading about it in magazines and newspapers, was a metaphor for leprosy, and how you could have leprosy that could be untreated in the 1800s, and you would slowly devolve and you'd lose parts of your body and you would become what visually was a monster. Because I hate to say this, but with leprosy, you lose your nose, you lose your ears, sometimes you lose your lips, your fingers start shrinking. It's a horrible, bloody disease. Bloody disease.
Yeah, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, right? And so I don't know if I'm going too much more, because we're going to reiterate some of these, I think, on another stream when we're more proper. This was completely impromptu, guys.
No. Let's go Cronenberg for a little bit. Let's go Cronenberg.
Yeah, well, then you can see the transformation part, pun intended, from the earlier ones because production value, what they thought of, right, and what they could get away with. So when you get up to Cronenberg, he knew he could get away with more and more, and get with his transformation is gross, right? It's pretty gross, right? But it's not. I'm going to take it back. I mean, it's not gory to me, right? I don't know why I even said it. I was thinking of the one scene. The one scene's not enough to make that a gory movie, but it's. I mean,
it is a horrific. It's a
horrific story,
absolute body horror film, but it's not a gore film.
Right.
Now,
it's pretty terrifying what happens to him.
Have you seen the first Cronenberg horror film from the 70s?
Give me the title.
Shivers.
Shivers. God, like that might have been a long, long time ago. I'll pull it up. Oh, they're gonna give me Sheeran lyrics. I guess he made a song.
He was doing body horror before he did the first Scanners film, and Shivers is really hard to take.
So it's before really Scanners?
Yes, before Scanners. Shivers is, I think, 1977?
75.
Oh, right. Okay.
And, IMDb. It's going to show. I was trying to. I can pull up images while we're talking and just go to. I can find the. I don't remember this one, man.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if I can recommend it to you, but if you want to look, if you have not seen Shivers and you talk about Cronenberg, everyone's going to laugh you out of the room. Okay.
Well, I remember that it came out. I just can't remember because I want to make it like this. Okay, so I am right about something. There's another movie, what in the 2008, with the little bugs that crawl in your mouth, right? And what's the and it was really, really gross. And they all came into the body, the big body, and they kind of tried to make it funny as well. Sliver.
Oh yeah,
Sliver.
Yes, and that actually had the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Not the Sharon Stone movie.
No.
Sliver. What's the horror movie?
I know. Hold on, let me look it up. But you look up Shivers first.
I got that one.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oop, can't show that one.
I know the movie you're talking about.
Slither.
Yes,
and actually there's a picture here that has them both together. Now I remember Shivers. Not that I can remember much of that.
Slither was really disturbing because particularly there's the scene of a certain woman who is now pregnant with the alien organisms, and her body becomes the size of a small house, and it's just her face and her little hands like attached. And that is, James Gunn understands body horror. Okay. He started out with Trauma. So Shivers and Slither. Now
that was kind of funny that they put those together like that, because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. Now, the thing about Shivers is it's more horrifying for a different reason, a very, very different reason. The organisms in Shivers are going to cause you to become very violent, but also very, shall we say, aggressively sexual.
Yeah, I saw some of the images. There's some nudity in it.
Yeah.
A lot of nudity, I think.
Not for the weak of heart. And I have only watched the film twice. I'm never going to watch it again. Never.
Really? I'm going to put this. I have to go back and watch this. Is it on
Tubi? Oh, God damn it.
Well, I can't remember. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to bullshit anybody. If you ask me if I've seen it, I'm going to tell you maybe, or I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm probably going to tell you that I did, but I'm thinking maybe that I didn't, because I'm probably sure I would have at least said yeah. But I'm thinking because of the bugs, I might have at least known about it or saw it and just, couldn't retain it. You know
The
what I mean?
uncut version is almost never shown. So you're going to have to go online to see the uncut version, most likely. It might be on Tubi right now. I don't know. Tubi is really weird because they might have, like, the Gorgon has been on Tubi for 2 years, right? And then you have a really good movie by produced, not directed, by Roger Corman. It's going to last for 2 months and then it's gone. It's gone. I don't understand how Tubi decides what they keep and what they dismiss. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
with
They've got some horrific, not horrible, horribly disturbing, some disturbing movies on that. I won't even bring it
oh
up.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
There's one that I think should, never mind.
But I mean, Shivers is really hard to take, but then you have the first, and this is body horror and gore together for you, Dave. Okay. The first exploding head properly done in history, which is Scanners by Cronenberg. You seen the uncut version of that?
No, I wouldn't remember if I saw the uncut or original of Scanners. I've seen Scanners. That's been a long time, but
it's got Michael Ironside in it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
As the villain. Wait, yeah. Okay.
No shit. He plays Revok. He plays Revok. He again, look, if you haven't seen Scanners by now, look, kids, you're not going to watch it because we recommend it. But Michael Ironside plays the unknown brother of the protagonist. The unknown brother. And it has very significant science fiction overtones to it. And it's horror meets the telepath. Horror meets the person with psionic abilities. And it's one of the first films that ever dealt with it. And one of the first things we see within 5 minutes of the film is a head going kaboom.
Yeah.
You know, and just going blam. And it is, even if people haven't seen Scanners, they've seen the GIF of it. The GIF has been on the internet since 1999.
No. I mean, Scanners I mean, anybody knows Scanners, right? For the most part. You might not have seen it, but you probably have heard about it if you're talking horror or psychological type stuff like that, psyops and all that. Shivers.
There have been more than 3 sequels to it. More. It is a franchise. Scanners is a franchise. So it had to do something right at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me remove this one and pull up. When you talk about horror movie eras, and I didn't really look into the 90s one because I went straight to 80s. But
everybody does. They always leave the 70s aside. That pisses me off.
Well, it's okay, but because we'll do all the eras, right? And we started in the 50s and 60s with the Hammer ones anyway.
I do like the 50s. I love the 60s. I adore the 70s. 80s, not as much as other people like. Some of the 90s stuff is really great.
Yeah. And let me see if this is going to go to the other side here. Yeah, there we go.
Have you ever seen the film called Society?
I think so. Sorry, guys. Let me get to the
Society. Okay. Matthew Pounder probably knows this, and I know Buddy knows this. Society is one of the ultimate body horror films, and the ending 15 minutes is really hard.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think. Let me pull it up while I've got this up. The
Wolfen. I love the Wolfen.
I liked Wolfen. And somebody on YouTube did a thing about Wolfen the other day. I was like, oh my God, it's so cool that people would even talk about it. And one guy didn't like it at all, but I was like, hey.
The Wolfen is a deep movie. It's talking about cultural acquisition and cultural legacy.
Yeah.
And
it did have one gory scene though.
Pardon?
It did have a quick gory scene in it. At least one.
And it also had a little bit of sexy in it.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil alert on that because I don't know if any Lady V.
It wasn't really nudie. It was sexy.
That was no, and it man. If you look at this list, we you could spend another decade talking about, because if you want to talk about over the top or not, because I did say like The Thing,
Yeah.
the horror, the scenes in there fit for what they wanted to do. Okay,
Mhm.
so I don't want to be a hypocrite. And you look at Hellraiser, right?
Oh God.
Geez, man. Do you everybody remember watching that for the first time? Wow.
Oh dear God, yes. And
Okay.
I
Okay. So
watched
talk
I
about getting
watched two of
creeped
the
out.
sequels. Two of them.
Yeah, one is so way over the top. I don't. That which proves my point for at least me. That I watched the second and the third one. The Cenobites are the creepiest. Jeez, man, those things. But so I have to be careful that I don't sound weird on or go back on what I've been saying. So Hellraiser fits for what it wants to do, and
Mm.
and if you want to have the gore in there, you're gonna kind of have to, right? The guy's name is
I agree.
Pinhead, for F's sake.
But there was a plot there. Now look, I'm not
Well, at
I'm
least
not a
yeah.
fan of Clive Barker. All right. I'm not a fan of Clive Barker, and I can explain to you why those films were so absolutely a word that other people use, I don't, perverse, right? You understand what I mean?
Well, we talked about that earlier with the movie that I turned off, believe it or
Right.
not, right?
Right.
The uncut version, but it didn't matter. Like I said, they filmed it to put it on there, didn't they?
Right.
Right? It just didn't make it. And there's a
But
freaking reason why.
Clive Barker is very open, and I respect him for this, about his, shall we say, in quotation marks, personal life, right? You know what I mean? Like what, he's not that quiet about what he does behind closed doors. And that's why nobody's been able to cancel him. He got way ahead of the curve. Okay. Way ahead of the
Yeah.
curve. He
Yeah.
is not vanilla. He is a kinky man. I'll just be blunt. He has made it quite plain. He's very kinky. He
Well,
does like leather.
this is an instant classic, right? I mean, Hellraiser's a classic, right? I mean,
Yeah, but he's basically writing a story from things that he fantasizes about. And that's okay. But
hey, well, I mean, he probably sat back and said, "These are some really weird plots in my head. I'm either going to take these with me the rest of my life and go work at a factory, or I'm going to make some damn movies and see how it works out."
have you ever read the short story that led to the movie Rawhead Rex?
No, no.
Okay. The movie Rawhead Rex, which is also a movie that can be very fun, but it's very stupid. It's not accurate to the story. The story of Rawhead Rex is not like the movie at all. No.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. It's been so adapted. I mean, there's been probably a million movies that I didn't even know were based on books or novellas. Well, a lot of novellas, horror movies really live off a lot of novellas, I would think, right?
Well, there's that, and also there's the accurate depiction versus the non-accurate depiction, because the studio knows the accurate depiction is not going to make money. So we can actually go back to the original Universal 1931 Frankenstein with that. It is not accurate to the book. I've read the damn novel. Okay.
Right.
It is not accurate to the novel. The monster is not mute. The monster is actually very eloquent, very articulate, had to teach itself how to speak. It's a very tragic story. And you'll look at Bram Stoker's Dracula. Bela Lugosi, Dracula, not accurate. Not accurate at all.
I've heard a lot about that.
Right. Nosferatu, very accurate. First, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, not accurate. Well, the silent film version is as accurate as they could get away with. The Frederick March version in the 1930s, not accurate. No.
Yeah, and so if you go back to looking at these, as far as accuracy and stuff, that they're all over the place sometimes, right? And they don't follow this probably because of production and people in the movie studios and all that kind of crap. And then you get into what can we get away with? I don't think Bela Lugosi didn't show. I get my blood movies mixed up on which ones that I know the ones that do, and I get mixed up with some of the older ones that I seem to always think that they did, and they
There
don't.
was no blood
No, there
shown
was
in the original 1931 Dracula.
absolutely not. I knew that one. And then as you progress over the years, they start pushing the envelope, right, with people. I don't know
Right.
where. I don't know. It's just the evolution of people. Period. And then you get from something like that was probably scary as hell for some people, maybe not for others.
Mm.
And then you get to Hellraiser. I'm going to tell you, there's one or two on
Mhm.
this list that didn't freak me out that bad. There's The Fly down there. That one creeped me. Not like The Thing though. The Thing, that's
Mm.
probably one of the top of my list of the 80s and that kind of film.
Mm.
But I like the original Poltergeist for being scary because
I agree.
it creeped me out. The acting was great, you know.
Did you see it in the theater first, or did you see it on television?
I remember seeing it in. I'm gonna get my movies mixed up. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I think I saw this one in the movies, if I remember correctly. But I was young because that's an early 80s, right?
Yeah. I saw it in late 82.
Yeah, I definitely saw this one in the movies. And I loved it. I loved it.
I adored it.
I graduated high school in 87. So, I would have been like a freshman. Not even a freshman.
Dude, the trailer did not warn us about that movie.
No, Poltergeist, right?
Sometimes trailers undersell things. Sometimes they oversell things. Poltergeist was undersold in the trailer. It made you want to go see it. It did not warn us about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Neither did the trailer for John Carpenter's The Thing. Neither did the trailer for Brundlefly. Some trailers understate things, and I wish we could go back to that. Okay? I really do, particularly with horror films, because these days trailers, and I'm really pissed off at horror trailers these days.
Yeah,
they're basically giving you shots of the damn movie instead of enticing us to see the damn movie.
Yeah. Lady V, I guess you're talking about Poltergeist. You watched it later. Yeah, it was super, super creepy. I wasn't young, but I might have been in 7th or 8th grade, depending on when it came out.
Right.
So I wasn't that old either. So it was perfect timing, I think, at that age to see Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Still in your teenage years, but not 13, right? I think 13 probably would have scared the living shit out of me. It's scary enough, creepy as it was when I was on 17. I started school, I was 5. So I graduated and I was like almost getting ready to turn 18.
I mean, there are certain things that are scary that actually don't have the visual attached to it.
Well, that doesn't have the gore either. Poltergeist, the original one had the face scene. It had the face scene. It had the face scene, the mirror.
You're right.
Right. Yes. So I remember that. So you do get me on that one, but it wasn't the basis of what we were talking about earlier before we started.
Right. And
which
also
actually got us to do this straight.
That wasn't real gore. Those are the spirits affecting the mind of the paranormal investigator.
Like you said, what was the main thing you said about the difference of the gore of that other movie? And I'm going to hold on to the end before I tell you guys what one it is. I let it slip earlier. The difference is there's a story. The whole story was behind that mirror scene. Everything in that was built around it. The stuff that we were talking about, there was it's just, if you want to go see a slasher chop 'em up movie, I'll tell you which one to go see, the uncut one. I did let it slip though, didn't I? Terrifier. So I'm going to just say it anyway.
Yeah, a little bit. But
the uncut one, the uncut director one on
Shudder has a good comment here. Can you go down a few? There we go. The thing is that what we were promised with Poltergeist, Matthew, and you know this because you know your stuff. It was supposed to be a Tobe Hooper film. For people who don't know, Tobe Hooper became famous because of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then he did a couple of other films that also made money, maybe not well received, but made money. Also did Life Force, one of my favorite sci-fi horror films of all time.
Oh my God, we're going to do Life Force. And oh, hey, Lady V, that's definitely going to have to be on Cosme.
Oh, I think Lady V probably has seen Life Force and probably
she
loves it.
wants she's thinking about doing Shivers watch party. I said, all
Oh,
right,
okay.
we'll do it on Cosme, but Life Force, absolutely.
Right.
I
But
love Life Force. I have it.
there's this huge debate, and it's been going on for more than 20 years. That's 1/5 of a century, over how much did Toby Hooper direct and how much did Steven Spielberg, as a producer, decide to come in and say, no, Toby, this is wrong. Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and
And
Matthew's so on point right here, though, right?
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But there
Yep.
wasn't that much gore. We perceived the gore to be there, but there was only one gore scene. There were dead body scenes, and there were
The
very
jump scares with toward the end with the coffins, but come on, man, the tree scene building up to the clown scene.
but
Oh
the tree is
man,
not gore. There's no gore
no,
there.
no, and you didn't need it. It does.
That's
That's what.
actually going back to folklore horror.
Yeah,
Folklore. The
and the
tree that will
clown.
eat you.
Oh, dude, I couldn't look under my bed for how long after watching that movie, Poltergeist.
Yeah, and you
Are
know
you
the
serious?
clown doll, that's terrifying. But
Man.
the other thing that's terrifying, which has no gore, but people misperceive it as gore, is when they open the closet in Carol Ann's room, and
Mhm.
it's just this pulsating orifice.
Oh yeah, that's not gore. That's just
That's
yeah.
gross.
So if you guys haven't caught on, you've heard me say it. I watched Terrifier for the first time. I'll say it fully now. I'll probably bring it up again. This is what got me and hungry to do the stream. This is what segued into it. That I was getting a little, not because I'm getting old. It's just so out of bounds. It was just there's a scene in there, guys, that's just I'm not even gonna. If go watch Bone Tomahawk, and that's brutal and that's bad enough, and you'll know what I'm talking about. That's Kurt Russell, by the way, lady. She said she's not a Kurt Russell fan, and I didn't mean to do that on purpose. This is really what got us to do this stream, and because we were having so much fun on Dadman stream, and we started talking about horror, and then I said I watched Terrifier, but I got into this thing where this was just so over the top, ridiculous. It was so horrifically brutal, but unnecessary. It's like you say, Hungry, a couple of times now as well. It had nothing to do with anything.
Right. And that is what we were talking about. Look, if you had every scene in Terrifier 2, not the first one, and also the character of Art the Clown is in a short excerpt in an anthology movie, by the way. That's where he first shows up. Then he was successful in that anthology movie. They made Terrifier. And then they made Terrifier 2. And then they decide to make the character supernatural. But they never give us a rationale for Art the Clown coming back from the dead. And
yeah.
Look, you need a rationale. You need a script. You need a real script. You can't just do shit that's fun to look at with no rationale behind it.
Yeah, and so if you just want to go see a gross, if that's what you want to see, by all means, go for it. I mean, I've seen, like I said, I've seen Texas Chain. I've seen all the guts and stuff that I can't even remember some of them until I pull up stuff like this. I mean, but you talk about Alien. Alien had a horribly gross gore scene, right?
Several.
The chestburster scene. How iconic is that now?
But it was all explained in the script.
It was
and that's what made it
theme of the
horrific.
whole damn premise of the character. And if you want to talk about people who had bad thoughts in their head, I wouldn't say bad thoughts. Sorry, bad thoughts would have been Terrifier thing. Great sci-fi horror with even gore or not gore would have been Giger, who came up with this whole alien thing, right?
That he was a messed up little puppy.
Yeah,
he was a messed up little puppy. I've done a lot of deep dive studies into Giger because I used to work with an airbrush. He was a primarily airbrush artist. Okay. So as an artist, even though I'll be honest, and I don't want to sound conservative. I'm not, but I despise 80% of his art because it's just messed up, deviant crap.
You either like it or you don't. I mean, there's no in between on that unless you want to try to be all hoity-toity and try to analyze it to the point ridiculous. You either like that kind of
Oh,
stuff
I can
or
do
you
that.
don't. You
I
know,
can
it's
do
like,
that. I can be hoity-toity and
mm,
analyze things for 5 hours, but
sure.
all I'm saying is if there are some things I cannot mention on YouTube or even Rumble, okay, that H.R. Giger chose to spend 8 days of his life, 12 days for 8 days straight, using an airbrush to depict. And I cannot describe the physical actions that are happening in that painting.
No, no.
I can't.
I've
It
seen
is
some of his stuff.
beyond X-rated, beyond X-rated. But I would like to point up something that I believe Matthew Pounder brought up. This is, I know it's a cheesy film, and I know people made fun of it. I know it was done on a cut version, a censored version on MST3K. But I have a very special place in my heart for the Incredible Melting Man. So that is Matthew says it deserves a mention.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do love that film. I really do. And I love the idea of it. And I love the fact that the first female character we see in the movie is a big, chunky woman who probably would get no attention other from the monster in the movie. I think that's great. And I think that was very, very against the grain, okay, for a 1977 movie. And we must bear in mind, Matthew, if you look into the history of the movie, it was supposed to, the people who made the movie intended it to be a sci-fi parody, but then the people who were giving the money, they said, no, we want it to be more of a horror film. You got to add the horror elements. And that is why you had things that, you know, you and I talk about censorship all the time, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is why we're talking about these too. And I have a feeling you and I and whoever else is going to join us, hopefully can get Mark and JT to talk about some of those other ones like Brightburn and all that and do it more,
Oh, yeah.
even deeper dive into it's really, and I don't mean to derail what you're saying. Sorry.
No, I'll finish. It's really easy. There is a major decapitation scene in The Incredible Melting Man.
Oh, wow.
And you have to get the uncut version of the movie to really see it. Although MST3K snuck it in somehow. I don't know how.
For real?
And
Wow. Okay.
it
I wouldn't have
it
thought
is
that they,
actually, it is hilarious because the head is realistic, but the materials they made it of is not realistic. And the head goes boing, boing, boing down a little creek because it is the head of somebody who was fishing in a creek. And for people in Wisconsin, I'll say crick. That's a joke. That's a joke. Crick versus a creek.
I've heard that. I
And the
lived in
head
Kentucky for a long time as well. In the middle of the state, from Florida and Kentucky, Virginia. So I've heard.
I
of
don't
crick.
mind crick. I mean, if Dadman's going to make me say theater, then I'll say crick. I got no
Yeah,
problem.
It's hilarious
But
when he does that.
then you have the head fall down this like little 5 foot tall waterfall, and it hits some rocks at the bottom, and it bounces and it wobbles.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I mean the whole headless scenes are like a, I don't know, it's in the playbook of horror movies. Are you going to have a headless scene, and is he going to still be blinking and moving his mouth too? That's what creeped people out when that started first coming out. I'd like to try to figure out that might. I'm sure you probably can guess one or two of the first ones that ever got away with that in the movie theater, right? I almost
Late
looked up on it.
60s. Late 60s.
Yeah, I would
And
say even the. I don't even know if the Hammer, some of the Hammer ones didn't they have a decapitation scene?
yes, they did, but that
I'm
was again the
trying.
late 60s because of the
60s. Okay.
the censorship board in Britain at the time was very severe, as I mentioned earlier. You,
Right.
I mean, look, their X rating is what you in America would call an R rating.
Right. And
Okay.
guys, look, we've been around a while. It's the reason why you don't see Alien on here is because it's 79. And you've
Right.
got the chest burster scene, technically even in the 70s. But by then, like you said, that's probably the explosion that I was trying to figure out. Is late 60s
Yeah.
or 70s. And
It
then
was
forget it.
mid
Forget it
70s.
after that.
Mid,
Oh, God,
mid
it's
70s.
just,
Mid.
yeah.
And
Well,
also
there's
you
the
have to
Howling.
remember the explosion. Again, I don't really mean to sound like a hoity-toity progressive person here, but you have to understand that the censorship rules for America and England and Australia were very different, and Canada. So Cronenberg could get away with things that an American company could not get away with, or even if they could get away with it, the distributors might say, "No, we're not taking this. We're not taking this. Make cuts." And a lot of the cuts that are made into movies were demanded by distributors, not the censorship board. So, making a horror film, a real horror film, is or science fiction film, is a very complicated state of affairs. And you have films that used to have a poetic title in science fiction, a poetic title, and then you'll have the distributor say, the public is not going to understand that. They're not going to get it. They're not going to go see the film. We're only going to make money. We're the distributors. Like, you made the movie. We got to make money after distributing the movie. All right. So you got to change the title. So I don't care if you're saying this blah, 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 blah. You're going to change the title to I Married a Monster from Outer Space. I don't care if you think that's stupid. Now, I Married a Monster from Outer Space is one of the best damn science fiction films you're ever going to see. And Raquel rated it a 9 after I showed it to her.
Nice.
But
well,
the title is stupid. And she even said on Clobby's show, Clobby's Clubhouse, the title is stupid. She said that. And it is bloody stupid. And you have a film that does not involve vampires. All right. It's a film that led to Alien, 1979. The film is, the American title is Planet of the Vampires, made in 1965, released in 1966. It is a very sexy film. It is a science fiction film. It is about going to an alien planet after receiving a distress signal. Sound familiar, right? And investigating and finding out there were aliens there before humans were there. Sound familiar? And, and then bad things happen. Bad things happen. And that is, Planet of the Vampires was not the Italian title.
Okay? No, I think I know that one. That sounds familiar. Planet of the Vampires. You know,
it is a great movie, but you have to see. I know people don't like subtitles. I'm sorry, but sometimes, look, some people don't get it. The original European or Japanese version of a movie is going to have dialogue and script that is integral to the film. And the distribution for America is going to have people rewrite that script for the dubbing. And it's going to lose elements that are wonderful to a horror or science fiction screenplay.
That's perfect what you said, losing elements over shock value. And if that's what you're going for, by all means, go for it. That's cool. We're just talking about the differences and how sometimes it's just beyond what you need to do, really, in some of these movies. If you take some of their old ones that I watched, like down here, The Fog creeped me out. Oh God,
you mean the original?
The original Fog creeped me the hell out.
Love it.
Really? Love it. Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys have seen it in the chat, it's cool. It
has John Houseman, who was one of the stars in The Paper Chase, the television show.
Even the thing has Wilford Brimley in it, right? Didn't you say here with it? And you're like, wow, you would never see Wilford Brimley in a movie like this. So there's credibility to the gore because they were smart enough to get people in it.
And he has a very serious speaking voice. And so when he is a scientist talking about what's happening, he says, "This is not dog. This is imitation dog."
Yeah, that is he starts to freak out. You start to thinking the psychological. Can you even imagine let's say they got rid of all the gore, right?
Right.
But you have to have a little bit just to kind of nudge it in there, right? Because it isn't
or body horror, not gore. A little bit
maybe the dog to set it up, and then maybe the flamethrower one that just had that guy with the hand, right? Just to get you to really understand what's going on. But if you got rid of all that other stuff and played it out, writing and directing is what's going to save that movie. Right. And it could have still been. And you know what everybody would have been screaming for, though? Mm-hmm. We want to see that alien rip somebody up. We want to see more. We want to see it. right? They would have done that later, right?
I know.
Right. But it didn't have to, but it fit because everything you've seen and what we're talking about for these particular movies, it fits perfectly, right? Like Poltergeist, The
Yeah.
Thing. It was absolutely gory, but it was alien gore. And then you had the like you said, the chest burster, the chest enclave scene. All of it, the whole damn movie. The dogs, you can go on and on and on. But that's what makes it iconic.
Before we get to the chest burster, you have poor old John Hurt, okay, making the mistake of looking at the egg, okay, and the egg opens up. He makes the mistake of moving his face in a little bit closer to see what's going on. We see that disgusting mess in the egg going blah 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 blah, and then it just goes wah! And flies into his face and uses the acid to break through his face helmet. And then we see the chest hugger on his face the next time we see John Hurt as a character.
Well,
and we all know it's all over for him from that moment,
well,
no matter what the script says.
Yeah, and then you got what's his name saying, "Don't touch it," because they were going to kill it. And there I go forgetting characters' names on one of my favorite.
No, they took a scalpel and they tried to cut into one of the legs, and the xenomorph blood comes out and burns right through.
Oh, I was like when it first comes out of Hurt, that's horribly gory, right?
Oh yeah, that's
you got a monster exploding out of this dude's chest. That's as good as it gets, right? Until you see the Thing. But and Hellraiser and a few others, but for 79, I'm sure you knew this, and I'm sure everybody else might know this, that and there I go with the characters, completely forgetting, not Ash, the short hair girl who got into
Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah, her character's name in the movie. I'm trying to stick with I can't think of her character's name, not Dallas, Ash, all those guys, but her name. She supposedly, and it looks real, she didn't know that was going to happen. And
that is apocryphal. Now,
I was like, well, that's BS. There's no way she didn't know that. Everybody's got to sit there and they're doing a take after take and all that. And so I'm not sure if I've ever bought into that. By the way,
Lambert was her character, but
Lambert. But see, I watched. Well, do you remember when? Either that or she's a really, really good actress. Other than that scene, she makes a gesture to like.
Here's what apparently, as of 2 years ago, is the real version. They were told what was going to happen, but they weren't told how realistic it was going to be.
Right.
They had no idea. They thought it was going to be like some cheesy, bloody, like Friday the 13th special effects. Okay. And they didn't know certain materials that were going to be used for it. So there was a stank, a nasty smell that happened. And, well, that's going to help an actor have what we call a method acting response.
Yeah.
Method acting response.
Yeah. And she definitely showed it. So when you want to say, well, setting up everything like they did for the Thing, you could have got away with a lot of scenes not being in that movie, but you're gonna have to keep some unless you change a lot of writing. And
if you look at the reaction, if you look at the reaction of Yaphet Kotto, who is the tough black man in that movie, he is freaked out as well. He is utterly freaked out.
Oh, he freaked out, went complete defensive. I'm gonna stab that thing right now, right away. And the only thing is Ash. And
I love Yaphet Kotto. I love him.
But the gore is necessary there, right? Because now you're like, everybody's just like they don't even know what they just saw.
I know.
They're just like, what? Except for Ash, a-hole.
And it's actually really funny showing the film Alien. If you can keep a zoomer awake until we get 30 minutes into the movie, that's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because
I'm a huge Goldsmith fan. I actually did a thing on a music class for him, and the setting up horror is music. I mean, come on,
Yeah, I agree.
everybody. Halloween. If I had a keyboard, I'd play it for you right now. If I had set this up, maybe I would have done some funny things that people have on their stream, but we just did this impromptu, like I was saying earlier. And the
Impromptu, but I
music,
think we're kind of kicking ass here.
I think we are too.
However, I agree with
well-
you. I want to get back to that, but I have to go to one thing Matthew Pounder said, which is, look, if you want to be a non-basic bitch in horror, you got to pay attention to Mario Bava, because Matthew Pounder says Mario Bava was a genius. I completely agree. Now, I don't want to offend you, Dave, but you maybe not have seen the important Mario Bava horror films in the context of this discussion. Do you know the name?
If you can throw some titles out there, maybe, because I'll
Okay.
be honest.
It doesn't sound like a horror film, but it is. It's a supernatural horror film. Kill Baby Kill. I would rate that number 1. Now, also, he did a film referred to as, in America, Black Sunday. But
I know of that one. Can't remember to have seen it.
It was a black and white movie. It had Barbara Steele in it.
Barbara Steele?
Yeah, Barbara Steele, baby. Barbara Steele. She played the 2 main female characters. And so the original title, I'm not going to do the Italian, I'm just going to translate, is Mask of the Demon. Okay? He did that one. And he also did one of my favorites, which let me just check. I just want to make sure I have the name of the actress correctly, because I don't generally pay attention to blonde actresses. No offense. Elkie Summer in Baron Blood.
Oof. Hey,
Baron Blood is magnificent.
A hottie, though.
Pardon? What?
She's a hottie. Elkie Summer?
Not my type. Not my type. I'm more of a Salma Hayek kind of guy.
Oh, well, I've got my other favorites too, but
I'm sorry, Lady V. I'm sorry.
Raquel Welch. I'll take Raquel Welch.
Yeah, and Raquel, not blonde. Sophia Loren, not blonde. Suzanne Plachette in The Birds, not blonde.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against blondes, but I like a nice curvaceous figure. I like some sensuality. And even if they are not blonde, not brunette, look, I mean, from 1978 Halloween up until about 10 years ago, yeah, I can totally get into Jamie Lee Curtis. Totally get into Jamie Lee Curtis.
Well, then Monica Bellucci's on your list.
Pardon?
Monica Bellucci must be on your list.
Oh, Hubba Hubba.
And she was in a kind of gory horror movie, Brotherhood of the Wolf.
I agree. And that is a very good movie. Very good movie.
I have it.
And also Fairuza Balk, okay, who is partially Middle Eastern, and she was the main villainess in The Craft. That's Fairuza Balk. She also made the mistake of playing one of the characters in the Val Kilmer version and Marlon Brando version of The Island of Dr. Moreau. Now you remember.
Yeah.
I saw your face.
That was
Fairuza Balk is sexy as hell.
Yeah,
and thank God she's still alive.
Yeah, she was one of those. Like, I mean, there's a million of them that were just great. But if you go back to seeing the difference of what we started this whole thing about, not that I'm trying to get back on track, I love going off on tangents. There's 2 movies right on this screen right now, and the difference between them, and still terrifying. I'm going to actually pick one that had hardly any gore in it at all, and it's not Beetlejuice. That's a comedy. I'm going with strictly horror. Nothing
I agree.
Funny,
Let me go full
funny.
screen so I know what you're talking about. Give me a second.
Well,
I can't look at the chat and be full screen at the same time.
I know. I have to take my screen down to do it, then watch it on the StreamYard, or actually.
Please do not talk about Cannibal Holocaust. I hate that fucking movie.
Okay, well, there you go. That's one of them. That's the far
No,
end.
you
Well, that was easy. That was easy for you, right? Okay, so if you look at that screen, and I'm going to pick two that are opposite ends of what we're talking about here. I watched a couple of those cannibal ones because I wanted to see how horrible they were compared to
I
the
hate.
one that I just
I don't
watched.
like that genre at all.
And
I really hate it.
Not going to go back and watch any of them again. And take Cujo if you're young. Take Cujo, and then you take Cannibal Holocaust and tell me which one's more actually terrifying.
Cujo.
Yeah, if you're younger, right? If you're younger, because Cujo came out. Let's see, it's an 80s. We know it, so at least in the 80s, mid 80s at the most, right? And you put Cannibal Holocaust on. Hey, I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing.
I actually disagree because I knew people in the 70s who had a major dog phobia.
Well, that's what I mean. Terrifying without gore. That's just ridiculous for gore being gore. Cannibal Holocaust. There you go. Guys, there's no explanation I need to tell you all what's in this movie.
Now you're bringing up not a lot of gore, but really horrifying. You mentioned Cujo. Okay, go one to the right. Have you seen The Fun House by Toby Hooper?
No, Hooper. I haven't actually. I was looking right at it, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't.
You
think so.
bloody heathen! You horror heathen!
I've only got
you are a heathen of horror.
Only so many minutes in my life.
Blasphemy! Blasphemy! Sacrilege!
I'm more apt to say I'm mad about not seeing Shivers, but I'm actually wanting to tell you I can't remember it. Is the Funhouse? I'm going to say I don't know at all.
Honestly, Funhouse has one member. Let me exit full screen here. Funhouse has a significant member of the cast who is very important, and he actually is only in the film for less than half of it. Okay, less than half of it, but he makes the whole film happen, and it is honestly, it is a gut-wrenching film. It is a gut-wrenching film, but he's one of my favorite character actors. He has been in Jag. I love Jag. JAG. And the actor's name is Kevin Conway. And he is magnificent. And I'm not going to do any spoilers for The Funhouse, but he plays the dad.
Ooh.
He doesn't play the dad of any of the people who get victimized. He plays the dad.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, there he is. I pulled him up.
For you,
well, this should be on Shudder.
I'm not gonna recommend this to anyone else in the chat, but for you, I do recommend this movie. Now, some parts will be hard to take, but there are emotional parts that are hard to take. Okay, emotional parts. Is there gore? Yes, there is. Does the script justify the gore? Yes, it does. Is there a big reveal of the so-called villain? Yes, there is. Is there prosthetic effects that are magnificent and really scary because they correspond to medical difficulties that face a lot of children who are born with deformities? That's a little bit of a spoiler. I apologize. Yes. But see, it's not really a spoiler because if you get through the first 18 minutes of the movie, you know it's coming up. You know that reveal is coming up.
I pulled it up. I saw some of the images.
Oh no! Oh no!
Well, it's Funhouse, so I knew it was clown, right? And then you have to have that.
You didn't see the face of the villain, did you?
No. Just
okay.
IMDb'd
All right.
I was pulling up the Conroy guy.
Yeah, Kevin Conroy is an amazing actor with a great voice, and it doesn't matter if the role is cheap or the role is expensive. He puts everything into every role he does. Everything. Like Peter Cushing did. Like Christopher Lee does. So I honestly think he is an unappreciated god of genre. Not necessarily horror. He did not do that many horror films. Funhouse is his most noteworthy horror film. But he does deserve respect in the horror genre for The Funhouse, which is a Toby Hooper movie, and it shows. It shows.
Nice. And then, I mean, so these horror movies go from everything we're talking about. You can see the differences, exactly what we're getting into and what people have seen. And I was going to reflect on this, what's called tolerance level. Really, this is what it's based on, right? You're going to have some gore. It's a monster movie. You're going to have some gore in there. And you look at this one, The Shining.
Oh, God.
Man, that was another one. That's another one that just scared out of me.
But, you're bringing up tolerance level for the visual aspects of horror. For me, when I saw The Shining as a kid in theater, my tolerance level was challenged when we saw the guy in the furry outfit doing sexual things with the guy in the bedroom. You know the scene I'm talking about.
Yeah. And as far as like the terrifying, it might have even been the two girls in the hallway, right?
Yeah.
It's just the setup. And that's the difference. And of course, I was young then too. I was talking it's an 80, but I don't think it's late 80s. I think it's early 80s.
It was 1980.
It was 80, so it barely made the list. You see the differences between what your tolerance level could be as far as just being literally scared so much that 50 years later, looking at a picture makes the hair stand up on your arms.
Right. Or also, let's bear in mind, to be fair, Kubrick is not a guy that rushes any damn movie. He's notorious for that. And he was notorious for that in The Shining. So, I mean, like almost all of 1979 was being used to make this movie that was released in 1980. So it's really, if you think about it, it's more of a 1979 movie.
I would say so too. And the gore is pretty much limited to a lot of blood scenes, a couple of ghost monster, and then poor Scat.
Right? How old were you when you first saw the movie?
Probably, I want to.
Under 15?
Maybe, let's see, 15, 17. I can't even do that. I graduated in 87 and 18, 17. So, yeah, under 15.
Right.
No, definitely under 15. I'm trying to, because I'm thinking of like movies like Jaws. There's just so many movies flying through my head right now, like Howling.
Right. I get it.
Definitely.
But there was a scene with no gore, right? This was body horror, but no gore, supernatural body horror. The scene that freaked me out the most is when Jack Nicholson is having, shall we say, this special moment with a sexy woman in the bathtub. You know what I mean? So does Lady V. And then he's kissing, smooching, groping, and then he suddenly realizes what he is, not whom, what he is smooching and groping. And ugh.
Lady V. She uses the meme. Let's see. Matthews, the horror mags. Fangoria. Like Fangoria. And then they had another one. Didn't they have a Monsters?
Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine.
Okay. Yeah, Fangoria was the one, right?
Fangoria was primarily over-the-top horror. Famous Monsters was focused more on science fiction and monster movies with horror as an adjunct to it. So Famous Monsters would cover a lot of horror films, but Fangoria was very specifically focused on horror movies, not necessarily monster movies or sci-fi movies, whereas Starlog magazine was focused primarily on science fiction films with a little bit of horror and maybe a little bit of gore.
Yeah, I mean, they even have if I remember, like what did I do? Ooh, I thought I cut you out of there. Hungry.
Oh, thank God you didn't.
I thought I cut you off right out of there. Um, yeah, they were all over the place a little bit, but they did show when it was gross. They showed it. You could see some of them. I forget. I got to add it to the stage. Such a pain.
It was a good magazine.
Yeah, I remember getting a few of these, but I probably wish I had kept them. So is that
It
showing
was
up?
a little bit. It was a little bit sensationalist, unlike Famous Monsters. But you have to understand when Fangoria started coming out, America, and it was a magazine dedicated to America. And if they made foreign sales, this is like comic books. We talked about that. If you make foreign sales, okay, but you're not really concerned about foreign sales. If you're an American magazine or comic book, at that time, you're focused on American sales. And American sales for magazines had become very sensationalist at that time. And horror had become very sensationalist at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess like I'm gonna pull up. I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm just gonna pull up a '90s screen and see. I want to. I probably should have saved this for the next stream where we're going to do. We're going to do a bunch of horror things.
Yeah,
like this,
do it now.
Yeah,
seize the moment.
I think I got the '90s. Look at the difference right there.
Yeah.
Scream. That's a slasher. All right. It's like a lot of psychology, but Tremors. I don't. Is that horror? I mean,
I got to go full screen here. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Tremors is not misery. Tremors is science fiction with horror elements. Misery is not horror. Misery. I know this is going to piss. Psychological thriller. Okay. Yeah. Blair Witch is just a bloody attempt at conning people into seeing a movie. I hate that movie.
Trying to scare people with the camera, and that was the first camera one, right? If I remember.
Found footage, yes, and shaky cam. Shaky cam. Although shaky cam had been used discreetly in movies before that, going back to the early 1970s, believe it or not. But the entire film was not shaky cam. The Craft is a supernatural horror film. Sleepy Hollow, I'm not even going to try to define that.
And we talked about Jacob's Ladder before we even decided to do the stream.
That film pisses me off so much.
Yeah, I don't the list, there's nothing that scares me here.
Have you seen the remake of House on Haunted? Have you seen the remake of House on Haunted
Hill? The House on Hill, that would be okay. So if this is The Haunting with Donald Sutherland, no, that's not that. That's the
no. Donald Sutherland was not in The Haunting. What the hell are you talking about?
No, there's another one. There's another one. He plays the father of the little girl. It's Possession one. It's a possession movie.
That's a different film. That's a different film. The Haunting was first done in 1963, and then it was remade in the 90s by one of my nemesis. Okay, John DeBont, who is a talentless piece of shit. I'm sorry to say that. Talentless, hack-ass piece of shit. He is the Michael Bay of horror films.
Well, Lady V says possession movies are usually funny. If I hadn't been so scared from Exorcist as a kid, maybe I would have grown out of it. And even my age, I did do the Shudder. I did watch a couple of them. I don't even remember some of the names of them. I watched the Exorcist series, just the first round ago, and then it got shitty, but it was scary at first. I just don't see like the overall greatness of horror movies in the 90s. I guess it's just a matter of opinion, right? Looking at this list.
Look, first off, let me just piss on The Haunting 1999 again. You star Owen Wilson in a horror film. We know you don't know horror films. Okay, Owen Wilson,
Liam Neeson, and just a star-studded cast, right?
Of the time, but none of them understood what they were dealing with. None of them, and the script was terrible. It was terrible, and a real horror film has a good script. a really good script.
And it's,
But
I guess
the
we're growing
90s,
up.
sorry,
No,
what?
that's, I guess I'm growing up here in the 90s that it just maybe, but I'm thinking nothing really scared me. Like nothing pops out like The Thing. Nothing,
I look,
nothing pops. Well, of course it's a classic, right? I guess it's not even fair to try to,
well,
it's not even
no, no,
fair
but
to
this is
even,
something I mentioned about an hour ago. The difference between American horror films and European horror films. So, how many European horror films from the 90s did you see? Probably not many, right?
yeah, I wouldn't, you'd have to throw titles out. I couldn't think of anything that pops
Kronos,
out.
Kronos, Kronos.
Is that the one with the bug, the metal, or is that
No,
it something? What am I thinking of? Something else. Yeah, obviously.
it's a
No,
Spanish, it's not American. All
no,
right.
no. I wasn't thinking American. I was just trying to figure out if I remembered it.
Mm.
Yeah,
So, thank you, Matthew.
yeah,
Thank
and
you.
lady, and yeah, they're on board with this, man. They thought it was comical. I just, I'm sure there was something I really, really liked. I mean, Misery was a psychological one. And of course, I did, to be fair, Jacob's Ladder freaked me out, but there's nothing, I don't, maybe I had to
You know,
lower this a little bit.
if
And
Jacob's Ladder had not gone with the ending in the last 10 minutes, I would totally defend that movie. But because, all right, again, spoilers, because they basically had us go along for the ride for the entire movie and then say it's only a death dream of a Vietnam vet who is dying in the rescue helicopter. No, screw you. That's like a science fiction episode that says everything you went through was just a test by the aliens. I hate
yeah,
that noise.
yeah, and then I'm gonna scroll down here because you had the original It. Okay, I'm gonna give that one to you. I read the book. The book. Oh,
Oh, yeah, the
geez.
book.
The
Love
book.
it.
The book is massive. At least the one I remember reading was huge. The book scared the shit out of me, and then the movie was pretty good because 1990.
Did you
I mean, it
see
was scary,
the
but
two-part
nothing
recent
like.
version? Did you see the two-part recent version?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was
Terrible.
pretty. Well, I can see where you wouldn't like it, where people wouldn't like it. I think maybe they
I'm the
tried their
grumpy old
best.
man
They
here.
tried
I
their
will not make
best.
apologies.
No, I like it, dude. I don't want anybody up here making apologies unless they
I
get personal.
love the novel.
The
Okay.
novel was good.
It was brilliant.
Good. It was, yeah. And
And
so
I,
you
yeah.
look at how they label these compared to the 80s. I'm not even
Ugh.
do the satire because that doesn't matter. Scream? Why is Scream in satire? Because it was the funny movie part of it.
Well,
guess
no,
you could put it in as
that
a
is actually
comedy.
fair. No, that's fair because the whole entire concept of Scream is making fun of the tropes and the themes of horror movies. And it's one of the first so-called meta movies. All right. So you have characters commenting in a horror film about what makes a horror film. I can understand that. I will give them that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's like People Under the Stairs was
Oh, I
because
hated
I
that movie. Oh, Body Melt, Australian exploitation body horror.
yeah, I was gonna say, what's that one? That might be a good one. But you've got, Practical Magic is a horror drama. That's
No, it's not a
drama.
horror drama. No, it's not. I've seen that movie twice. No, it's not.
It's not. It's not.
Have you seen it?
I watched it when it first came out, I think, but it's not horror drama. Needful Things was better as far as being labeled Devil's Advocate. But do any of these scare you?
Practical Magic is basically a wine mom version of the Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah. Yeah. The Candyman scared me. Okay.
Yeah,
Because I guess I
movie.
got into it. There's your Chucky, but that's not the original Chucky, is it? No. I can't even read it, guys. Sorry.
Matthew's getting ornery tonight. I love it.
Yeah, but there's nothing. There's a few in here that can compare, I guess. Kind of. Cape Fear was scary, but it's not. Is it a horror?
Oh, Lady V, that's also
What'd she
good. I'm
say?
sorry, I got to respond to the chat. You got a good
Skarsgård.
chat tonight. I know we don't have
Oh,
the numbers.
They're
And
killing it. They're
sometimes it's
killing it.
quality over quantity, dude.
Time Lords Unite. Is that the one?
No. It's go down. Skarsgård was a total goofball of a clown.
Oh, goofball of a clown. That is funny.
And Matthew says most of these are
And then most of these are garbage. So the chat is phenomenal tonight because well, they're agreeing with me. Because it's. I mean, there's some good movies in here, but they're not.
Oh, there are plenty of good movies. There honestly
there's
are a
event-
lot
all
of
right.
good 90s horror films. There really
I see
are.
one that we talked about earlier, and and I said it before we even started the stream that movie freaked me out.
Which one?
Event Horizon.
Oh yeah, that is underrated, and that is one of Anti-Derivative Jill's favorite movies.
And that was, wouldn't you say that was gory? With even the flashback scenes, that was like
there was gore
It
in the
just-
flashback scenes. In the
yeah,
flashback scenes.
the mental scenes that they were doing to Sam Neill's character.
And
right?
there's another film that Anti-Derivative Jill and I love, and I actually provided additional commentary when she reviewed it, Cube, which is an independent Canadian film. And I do recommend it. Sci-fi horror, but there is gore in it, but it is sci-fi based.
Yeah, because wasn't
Sci-fi based.
Nightmare on Elm Street's an 80s, right? The original, the first one. That's an 80s,
Yes.
right?
That has
And-
gore, but also body horror. The body horror gets stronger as the franchise continues.
Right. So if it's not a franchise movie like Nightmare, because that's a slasher, gory type of.
Oh no,
Kind of.
Nightmare is not slasher. Nightmare
have
on
it. They
Elm
have it
Street
listed.
is a supernatural horror film.
I agree. They have it. This one they have is listed, but it's not. I don't even compare it because the first one was in the 80s. But if you want good psychological, terrifying, there's Silence of the Lambs, and I could show
What
my
the
little.
hell is Fire in the Sky listed in horror drama? What the
They-
hell?
A lot
I've
of
seen that
people-
movie.
A lot of people like that because they took the alien. It was a more of a not a low budget alien one that made it more terrifying to be abducted. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But it's not a horror
So-
film. It's no.
Yeah. Not compared to what we're talking about, but and I'm not defending it if you don't like it. You know what I'm saying? Because some people will say it's
No,
okay.
I
some
like
people
it. I don't like the way it's
What-
classified and categorized here. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, I get it. I do. It's like, why the F is Leprechaun here is a slasher movie? I don't. And I
Oh,
watched this one
my
a couple years
God.
ago with Jennifer Aniston. He slashes up some people.
Oh,
It's
my
not a
God.
slasher movie, so they can't even
No.
categorize these
It-
movies the
look,
right way.
We could call it comedy horror more than we could call it slasher.
Yeah, yeah. And
'Cause
of
there are
course,
a lot of
Halloween and
jokes.
Candyman.
And
Candyman was
Silence of
good.
the Lambs, that's not a horror drama. No.
and it's not.
Oh, this
it's
is
not
pissing me
gory.
off.
It's not any of that kind of stuff. So you can see a huge shift in the gore and how it fits into the particular movies. Nightmare, this is a sequel.
Mm.
Cube, okay, that's a good one. Faculty was, I mean,
Yeah,
but
the
you
faculty.
see
yeah.
how the style of all these movies, Blade, that's comic book sci-fi. It's not.
Look, this is what happens when you have people raised on SpongeBob deciding the categories of movies.
Well, yeah, and you can see a definite shift when you look at these in totality, right? Because there's a lot that I'm missing. So if I
Yeah.
go to popular, let's just stick with popular right here at the top. I'll go over here. You got a sequel. That's one sequel. Sleepy Hollow. Tremors.
Mm.
Okay. Scream. All right. Horror. Misery. All right. People Under the Stairs. And there's Dracula. I loved that one.
People Under the Stairs I don't even want to talk about that movie. Keep
Yeah,
talking.
what do
Ah,
you guys think, guys? It's like, well, we already know.
ah.
Matt said most of these were trash. And Lady V is like, why? Uh,
And
so
I mean,
Dracula wasn't, I don't even know if I consider it horror other than it has vampire and bloody people on stakes in the beginning of the movie. It's a romance. It's a freaking romance movie. It's a love story that happens. He bites a couple people here and there. Now, I'll take it to it's rated R because of the girls. And guess who is one of the girls? I mentioned her name earlier. She's Italian.
look,
She
Monica.
was in
Yeah.
that. Monica was in that, showing the boobs. Of course, she's
Look,
got classic
now,
set.
now
But
you say romance. I say seduction. Okay.
oh, yeah, I totally agree.
And
Seduction,
the
love
whole thing about the
story.
vampire is the seduction, because let's remember, with classic cinematic, not folklore, vampires are very different. I don't want to go into that tonight, but with cinematic vampires, you have the people who are purely victims, and then you have the people that you turn into vampires who will be in your harem, shall we say.
Right.
And this goes back to, did you ever see the Hammer horror film Brides of Dracula?
Oh, I've watched that on Tubi last year or two ago.
Very good movie.
Or did I watch that on Shutter? No, I would have remembered if I watched it recently.
Right. Now, very good movie, but that shows it's not about love. It's not about victimization. It's about a creature that is no longer following the precepts of our morality, saying, I need some love too.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Now I'm going to wrap this up in a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull
sorry.
up a whole page of images of one of the classic for me. I don't know.
Okay.
God damn it. Hungry because I was looking at something else here too. The whether you can call it a horror movie, I think it is because it has a lot of good horrible scenes, and I think it's one of the classic go-tos for me to watch for fun. Okay, let me put that in, Hungry, for fun as well as a caveat.
That's why I watch The Incredible Melting Man, for fun. Yes, I get it.
And so this one is one of my, and I realized the other day, I don't even own it. I must have crashed it and threw it away.
What?
I'm gonna have to go and get this one right here, and gotta add it to stage before I forget.
Fright Night.
This is an 80s, but it's an 80s. You know, you see the difference in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I do. Which
And
movie are you referring to?
The first one, not the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, the first Fright Night, not the Colin Farrell one.
Yeah, we're never going to talk about that movie ever. The first Fright Night, absolutely. And that movie, yeah, In the Mouth of Madness, brilliant movie.
We'll have to save some of these for another stream.
Well, Dadman and I talk about that on occasion. Dadman was upset because Dadman said, you know, everyone's saying it was all in the head of the guy, but I thought it was real. Can you tell me, Hungry, if everything he saw was real or if it was imagined? Mm-hmm. And I say, there are so many indications in the movie that it is real. Don't worry about Dadman. Let it go. Every messed up thing that Sam Neill went through was real. It happened. Done deal.
Yep.
Finito.
Yep.
Done.
It was real. And to Lady
and
V,
Night,
that was
there are dumbasses going back to 1999 on the screenwriting message boards, Dave, who said it was all in the head of the main character. What the hell are you talking about? What the hell are you saying about? No. Fright Night, there was a vampire. He moved into town. Bad things happened. The young kid decided to take a step up and defend his neighborhood against the vampire. Case closed.
Yeah. Well, remember his buddy, what happened to his buddy? That was pretty,
Yeah.
he had to take out his buddy like that. And it was all shivering on the floor after it happened. And he was all talking. And, you know, I loved this movie. And I don't know how you feel about it, Hungry,
I
but
love it.
it's one of my, I'm going to have to go get this. I can't believe I've just remembered. I don't have it anymore.
If I'm going to rate 100 vampire films from 1 to 10, I put Fright Night in the top 7.
It's probably my top 5 at least, easily.
I'm
Easily.
close, but I include Near Dark. Near Dark is my favorite vampire film. You know what I'm talking about? I see your face.
And I talked about this before. If you guys haven't seen Near Dark, it's probably up there as well with me now. And I had to go back and watch that. And I'm a Bill Paxton fan. If I had my
God, yes.
If I had my alien stuff, I should. You've probably seen it already, Lady V.
Dude, no spoilers.
No spoilers.
But the bar scene with the Spurs.
Okay, yeah, and the bar scene for me as well is Bill Paxton has like a monologue. I don't know what you would call it, a speech. He has a chance to act here, and he fucking crushes it. He crushes it as a vampire. He's that good that you actually are like his buddy when he's talking about stuff that he's talking about in this bar scene.
Right.
In that bar scene. It's a long bar scene. And but he gets a chance to show his chops, pun intended.
Right, but this goes back to what we were talking about an hour and a half ago.
Oh, at least an hour.
There is gore there, but the script is justifying it.
There's plenty of gore. Okay, so it's levels.
Yeah, this is a gory movie. This is not body horror. This is gore.
It's gore, but it fits because when you hear him talk about being a vampire and what's going down, and he's not even the leader of the group, right? Hungry?
No, and he's talking about how old he was when he became a vampire.
And it's just so good. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again.
And it's got Lance Henriksen, also from Aliens.
Yeah, he's the head guy.
He is the leader of the pack, literally speaking, the pack of vampires.
Yeah, and going back to Fright Night, Matt says avoid that sequel. Yeah, you only watch it just to watch it, whatever.
But with Lance Henriksen in Near Dark, I mean, he gives a direct inference. He implies, we infer, that he is from the Civil War era.
Yeah, no spoilers, no spoiler. This is one of my. No, that's a good one though. Like you said, how old he's been around, and I want to say more about what he says in that speech, but
it's not really phenomenal. A spoiler because a real vampire film is going to imply that any real vampire is actually over than 200 years old. It's kind of a given.
And they show how strong they are physically, and vampire lore tends to be that the older you are, the stronger you get, right? If you know anything about Vampire Lestat, in the books and any old lore that delves off of the old movies that don't touch into anything because they don't explain that stuff.
Right.
That the older a vampire gets, the stronger they get.
But this is something that a lot of other YouTubers talk about, which is before a lot of these sons of bitches were born, setting up the rules, right? So a good science fiction film or a good horror film will set up the rules, and a character might talk about the rules, but they're going to talk about it in a way which is not exposition, not saying, hi, I was born in the 1800s. I became a vampire. I'm going to explain it to you for about 3 minutes, and then you're going to be able to understand the rest of the movie. A clever script does not do that. And Near Dark did not fall into that trap.
Yeah, I'm going to show a quick scene of him in the bar. And they don't.
I'm sorry if I'm getting a bit ornery here, but I'm very defensive of good horror films.
No, dude, I love it. That's why I like talking to you, man. That's why everybody appreciates it. He's smiling. So it's obviously a photo op in his costume. And these costumes and stuff, I guess we're going off from what we're talking about, the gore and stuff. He was pretty brutal but they
Oh, yeah.
didn't spend a lot on it either, right? They didn't go Fright Night level, but they did go pretty high level, especially on this burn one. If I can
Oh God, that. I mean,
if I
let's just
can
say for now, this was an independent movie, not a studio film, made in the 80s. It is
in the
so
80s.
before
Yep.
its time. So
And
before its time.
and
And it
this
was directed by a woman.
yeah, so there you go. And and this is what I'm showing the difference. I can really, man, we really should go into the difference of these 80s and 90s and just pick them apart, the difference that they had. Uh-oh, what did I do? Sorry, guys. There we go. Oof, almost derailed it all. You got to be very careful with some of these buttons
Yeah.
because I can remove people and it's right next to another button that I need.
Mm.
Luckily, the end of the stream is way up here, and I almost did that when I went to comments one time.
Right.
And luckily, it asked you twice. So this is Bill, R.I.P. Bill Paxton. I might have to do a feature on him.
I'm so sorry he died early. That really pisses me
That was
off.
terrible. What happened to him? Damn! I got to go back and add the stage. So you think I know it, but there's so many times I got to.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, okay. Now, for
Reiterate what
people,
you said about this, though. This was not a billion-dollar movie like they make now. You know,
and that was not CGI. He had to sit in a bloody makeup chair for more than 4 hours to have that applied to him.
yeah.
And look at the grin on his face. This is a trooper. You know what I mean?
He was so good as to play the role of this vampire that even when he was supposed to be hurting, when he got messed up here, that he showed that and he still almost liked it, right? Like, he didn't like it because it hurt, obviously, but he was
No.
like, he did. Yeah, that whole bar scene and later is phenomenal.
But there's
the
an implication. A real script, a real horror film gives you implications of the character,
He was
we
scary.
infer from.
But he was scary. He was scary in this role.
He was scary, but he was tragic. And see, the thing that I inferred from this moment in the film is he's kind of sick of being immortal at this point and having to do what he has to do.
It's
So
not
if you're going
showing.
to take him out,
Hold on, Hungry. Hold on. I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm going to be rude. It's not. Is it not showing on the YouTube side, guys? Here we go. Here we go again. This is what happened earlier. Remember? They're not, it's not showing like the other stuff showing.
Really?
So let me back out of it. And try
it's
again.
the burn scar
sorry,
makeup on Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
That's what we were looking at.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah.
His portrayal, even when it gets really over the top, it is still nuanced. It has context. Right? And we can always feel the amount of decades he has lived longer than he should have. We can feel the fact that, yes, he's enjoying killing people, but there's another part of him that says, I'm kind of sick of this crap by the end of the movie. And it is a very subtle movie and performance by Bill Paxton, but I also would argue it is a very subtle performance by Lance Henriksen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And one of these images, I think maybe I was having a problem, even though I had pulled it off into another tab, that depending on where I pulled it up, it wasn't showing, but that doesn't really make sense because everything else was working. Although we had problems with that at the very beginning of the stream. Yeah, just look up Near Dark with Bill Paxton, and you're gonna absolutely love it. And we're definitely gonna bring this one up again, right? And the last one I'll show, and then we'll get out of here.
Right.
Let's try to save some of this, although most of these are going to get brought back up on another stream, I'm sure. Is this one here.
Like Gil Kane in comic books.
And Gil Kane, you're going to have to push me so I can do a really nice setup for that. I'm not going to click on a bunch of different pictures for it. I'm just going to, this was a fun one for me. One of my, this is just for October and Halloween. Hopefully this will let me do this. you'll be able to see it, but I hope
Gotta
everybody
go
else
full
can see
screen
it.
again.
Oh, I didn't refresh. I guess Lady V did, and Matt, did you guys see the Near Dark pictures? I didn't refresh on the YouTube side. Sorry. That's probably why I didn't see it. I can't tell. Sorry. But this one showed up. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, Hungry. Yes.
No, it's okay. I
Now, what
did
do you-
enjoy this movie. It's goofy, but I love it.
Yeah. And the Dracula guy plays it. I can't think of the term. He plays it straight laced. Right.
Yeah.
He
Right.
doesn't, if there's any character who's not goofy at all, it's him. It's Dracula. He plays it straight arrowed through the whole thing. This is another one I'm gonna have to go by.
I do think to back up what you're saying, there are other performances in the film that are a bit goofy, but the fact that he's playing Dracula, as you say, so straight-laced, anchors the film.
Absolutely. And this is a I guess younger kids might be scared at some of this because he is so straight-laced.
I'd say if they're under 7.
Don't know. Yeah, younger kids, right?
I don't think an 8-year-old would be scared by this.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but here we go. Guess what decade this came in?
80s.
87. It's right there. It's another 80s phenomenal fun monster type movie, and the costumes and everything were great. I love the Aqua Gilman. It's fantastic.
And the lighting was very good. And this is something that bad horror films forget. I don't we're not going to go too much longer, but
no, we're not going to.
Bad lighting destroys any film, but bad lighting destroys a horror film 10 times faster and 10 times more. And that's why all the movies that you love most, if you think about it, Dave, all the horror films that you love most have very good lighting and cinematography.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what makes shading, lighting, and if you're gonna have monsters, you're gonna have to spend some money on the costumes. Sorry.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's why Creature from the Black Lagoon was so good, even though you could tell the bubbles and stuff were coming out. But that was, geez, look how long ago that was.
I don't care about the bubbles.
Yeah, I don't care about the bubbles. You don't care about them because animals breathe underwater anyway, right?
Right.
And Lady
also,
V pulls out another one, Pet Cemetery. Oof.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that movie. I don't mind. I read the novel. I enjoyed the movie. We're not going to talk about Pet Cemetery 2.
Not tonight. Or not.
No, not ever for me. Joke.
No.
But
good,
I mean, by the time we get to Creature from the Black Lagoon, we're moving to a less dignified version of black and white, where the contrast between the black and the gray and the white in the film is being reduced versus Frankenstein 1931, Dracula 1931, Bride of Frankenstein, where the black and white contrast, the shadows versus the light, is significant. And that's when, honestly, budgets were going down. Now, I love Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of my favorite monster movies ever. And I also love another Universal horror sci-fi film, which people forget was Universal. It Came from Outer Space. Another film I introduced to Raquel.
I love those guys. Weren't they the same dude? Was that the same dude and was in Them? If I remember correct, remember Them with the ants? We talked about
I love Them.
The Mantis.
No, not Mantis, Ants. Them was Ants. And then you had the other movie that was very underrated. Very underrated, called The Deadly Mantis. The Deadly Mantis is a great giant monster film. Fantastic giant monster film.
Well, if you want scary, It Came from Outer Space, or back then, it might have scared some people because that's their pod people. That's another early pod people type.
Yes,
people.
Very much.
It could have scared some people back then, right?
See, the thing is, until you get to the last 18 minutes of It Came from Outer Space, you have no indication of what the extraterrestrials are doing and why. And therefore it's terrifying. And you have one individual in the film who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And she is being terrified by people. But she doesn't know what the motivation for the extraterrestrials is. And this is something I talked about with, again, to bring up the name Raquel. I said, are you seeing how this led to Star Trek? How it led to the original Star Trek, right? The notion that we might misperceive the intent of an alien species.
Yeah, and they're going for thriller. They're going for, I would say, some horror with the monsters in it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they set it up as. Like I said before, if that's the direction you want to go with. When I was complaining about Terrifier, that that's what they made. So okay, but when you look at It Came from Outer Space and they had those alien monsters in there, they were taking over. Spoiler alerts, but I already spilled.
And
the
they
beans
were
anyway.
only shown 3 times.
And they were. There you go. Do you see what I mean? That's what we're talking about. Like the thing, the thing could have survived to be a classic and not have as much as they did. I'm glad they didn't. But you know what I mean? They could have, they had to have some. This one didn't have very much at all, and it's a classic.
The interesting thing about It Came from Outer Space, and that title is a misnomer. Okay, it really should be They Came from Outer Space.
Yeah, it's not. It's a whole group.
Right. But we see numerous scenes that are very creepy, particularly for a 1950s audience. We see humans through the point of view of the extraterrestrials. And it is messed up and weird.
Yeah.
And so we instantly know there is something messed up and weird on our planet. Very messed up and weird. And then we see the professor from Gilligan's Island acting very strangely.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was very good in that movie. You know what? I hate to bring up a cheesy movie because I like cheesy horror films too. He was also in Attack of the Crab Monsters.
Oh, geez.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
That movie is messed up, but it's good.
And like, even like Monster Squad only got like 50% Rotten Tomatoes. Go screw off. You know, the poster, if that changed. Yeah, I forgot that I'm still sharing that. Okay.
What's the rating? What's the rating for Monster Squad?
Oh, geez. I think they gave it a PG-13, but it definitely didn't give it an
No,
R.
I mean the IMDb rating. What are they saying?
Let me switch over to all and then go to IMDb. There you are.
Yeah.
Where does it?
Oh my God. They're giving it that rating, and Agatha's got a 6.7. Heresy.
Oh, yeah. Is that disgusting?
That is.
But if you look at the poster, there's Dracula being scary, and then it's kind of a fun with the kids and all type of thing. But if that's showing right now, I can get away with that for a second here. I'm going to get rid of that real quick. But the monsters looked good here.
Oh,
Wolfman.
The Mummy.
Yeah,
the Mummy looked fantastic.
Yeah, they looked fantastic.
The Frankenstein monster, I'm not that happy with.
I liked Wolfman. He looked really sleek though, because you didn't want him too grossed out, right? Like slobber.
Yeah.
But even Dracula had a little bit kind of makeup look to him. But Mummy and Wolfman and Gilman. I liked Gilman too.
Oh, Gilman, yeah.
So go check these out. I'm sure you probably have already seen them. Fright Night and what was not that one, not Monster Squad, but what was the one I wanted everybody to see on the other stream? Can you remember?
No.
Was it the Snow Wolf, the werewolf one? I can't remember now. Damn.
I don't know. Give me a moment. I'm hearing something at my door. I'll be right back. Give me 3 seconds.
Okay. No worries. So I was making recommendations Matt and Lady, about a werewolf. We were doing a werewolf thing, and there was one called The Wolf of Shallow Creek, and I couldn't, and I can't remember the other one. Anyway, I'm sure I'll figure it out, but there's, there's so many of these that you can go back and watch, and it's fun. It's fun to go back and look at all of these and talk about them and stuff like that. And when Hungary gets back, we'll wind up, and hopefully he can remember what that movie was.
I remember it was Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers, yes, with Sean Pertwee. Thank you.
And I also recommended for people who are able to deal with gender issues with lycanthropes, I recommended Ginger Snaps, which is very popular, and I don't mind it, but I prefer Dog Soldiers. But my favorite lycanthrope movie, look, I can give you 5. Okay, number 1 is the original, the very first Wolfman movie, which is The Werewolf of London, starring Henry Hull. A lot of people think the first werewolf movie is The Wolfman with Lon Chaney,
yeah.
Jr. No, Werewolf of London is the first one. And then you have The Wolfman, and then you have all the Universal stuff.
Yeah.
And then eventually we get into some very interesting 1950s werewolf films, including one with Michael Landon. I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Very good movie. Very good movie. And then we have to move up to The Howling, which came before American Werewolf in London. And then we have American Werewolf in London. Yeah, and then there's really, I'll be honest, there's really not much after that.
There's not. We could do a stream on just werewolf movies, right? And pod people movies, because it's so interesting that you say, oh, people would say, oh, Donald Sutherland, and I remember that one. No, and then remember, what's the one with the little boy? His name's David, actually, in The Creepy Teacher that I talked about. Do you guys remember that one? The Mars.
That's not a pod people film. That's the remake of Invaders from Mars.
Oh, that's right. Invaders from Mars. So, okay, I was kind of lumping them all in together for the Mars.
It is a body possession film, but it's not a body it's not a removal and replication film, which the pod monsters from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, your body dies and then you're replaced by a replicant. Okay.
All right.
Well, but in Invaders from Mars, you're merely possessed. Your body is possessed.
Yeah. And I put them kind of together, but you're right.
Definitely. I know. Look, I'm a pedantic piece of shit. I accept that.
But Lady V's leaving, and we're
oh, I'm sorry, Lady V.
As well, Matthew. So on that note, with the Mars people in outer space, and we can see the difference in these movies from the 80s to the 90s. I didn't realize
you forgot to mention why you must see the 1980s remake of Invaders from Mars. You forgot.
Well, is it because the kid's name is David?
No.
What you're losing me. I'm getting kind of tired.
Because it stars Karen Black.
Oh, that's right. You're a bunch of Karen Black fans around here.
Yeah. Hubba,
I just
baby.
remember, she's Smoking Eye. I think it's a great show. But Lady V, thank you so much. You
thank you, Lady
excellent V. Coming to hang out with us, you and Matthew, and I really do appreciate it. We'll probably do another stream, but man, we kind of crushed it tonight a little bit about the gore and all that. But we're gonna go back and pinpoint some out, because I'm gonna still get into the over the top crap with Terrifier, the version I saw, and then Human Centipede, guys. If you're still there,
yeah, I'm never gonna watch that crap.
Just crap. And you'll see what I'm talking about compared to other stuff. I might not even do that stream, but I might just go into Brightburn.
I don't mean the film, but no.
Stuff I would tell you not to go see, but here I am going to talk
like
about
Hostel.
Yeah. So, and look who's here.
Hey, B.
Hey, B from Low, man. Hey, how you doing? I don't know how long we've been going, man. Well, technically, you and I, Hungry, have been going for about 5 hours, 6 hours,
Technically. Now, can I
technically.
just suggest to people, if you can handle black and white film that has American and British actors, please check out Curse of the Fly. Not The Fly, not the Goldblum version, not Return of the Fly, Curse of the Fly. You will thank me later. You will.
Yep. And my recommendation for fun werewolf type stuff with a Doctor Who progeny, Sean Pertwee, and military and all that kind of good stuff is Dog Soldiers with Sean Pertwee. So that's my recommendation for the night. And because we were going to do Near Dark and all that, and that goes without saying. Just go see those. Recommendation, Dog Soldiers. Yours is Curse of the Fly. So on that note, B from I'm sorry, man, we've been doing our stream for 250, and we were on another stream for about 2. I guess that's it. Henry, any last thoughts, comments?
Always look for the horror film with a script behind the visuals.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, we shall see you soon and have a good night.
Nadio.